All right, it is 6:30, and we will call the City Council meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councillor Heller?
Here.
Councillor Eber? Here. Councillor Holland?
Here.
Councillor McGuire?
Here.
Councillor Robinson?
Here.
Councillor Fisher?
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on the agenda, I am delighted to recognize Chief Lyons, who has some special presentations to make.
All right, good evening, Mayor, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity tonight to recognize two of our outstanding staff members at the police department. I'd like to call Officer Ryan Belding up for the presentation of our Life-Saving Award. You have heard this story, but I'm excited to share it again. On October 19th, 2025, at approximately 5:08 p.m., Officer Ryan Belding was dispatched to the area of South Colorado Boulevard in the Highline Canal for a report of a bicyclist who had collapsed and was receiving CPR from other bystanders. Upon arrival, Officer Belding observed an unconscious adult male lying next to his bicycle. The male had no pulse and was exhibiting only sporadic agonal breathing. Recognizing the severity of the medical emergency, Officer Belding immediately relieved the bystander and began life-saving chest compressions after again confirming that there was in fact no pulse. Officer Belding continued CPR without hesitation until medical personnel arrived. He then assisted as responders prepared and deployed an AED. Due to the rapid recognition of the medical emergency and the immediate initiation of CPR, the male's condition stabilized. Personnel from South Metro Fire Rescue later credited the individual's survival to the prompt actions taken by Officer Belding along with the other bystanders. Because of Officer Belding's decisive response, sound assessment, and sustained life-saving efforts, medical personnel were able to restore the male's pulse and stabilize him while still on scene. And I shared with you how rare that actually is. Officer Belding's actions directly contributed to saving a life during a medical emergency. His professionalism, quick thinking, and dedication to public safety exemplify the highest standards of service and reflect greatly upon himself and our department. As such, it is my pleasure to present the Life-Saving Award to Officer Ryan Belding, and this award reads, the Life-Saving Award awarded to Ryan Belding, January 20th, 2026, awarded for the saving of a life or for an act involving uncommon risk in the performance of duties where decisive action beyond reasonable doubt prevented the loss of human life. Life-saving efforts conducted on October 19th, 2025 and presented by me, Jason Lyons, Chief of Police. Please welcome and join me in congratulating Officer Ryan Belding. I had the privilege to go to Swedish Hospital a few weeks ago with Officer Belding and met the gentleman whose life was saved. And in my 30 years, I've never had the opportunity to actually participate in such an event. That gentleman's true, raw emotions and his gratitude for everybody, from the dispatcher who took the 911 call, to South Metro's fire rescue people, to the hospital staff, to our own Officer Belding. It was truly amazing to see. And I wish I could share his words of recognition for Officer Belding, but I honestly don't think I could get through it. So, Ryan, congratulations. It's well earned, well deserved. Thank you. Secondly, and we don't get a lot of these, this is a recognition for 40 years of service to the city of Cherry Hills. John Bayman, would you join me up front, please? Well, he started his service in January 16th. By the way, you don't know this, but that's also my anniversary. 10 years later, but nonetheless, January 16th. I was going to start with a little anecdotal story about when you started here. I was halfway through the fourth grade, and I was really enjoying myself in the fourth grade. We were different missions, but today we honor and recognize John Bayman for an extraordinary 40 years of service to both the Cherry Hills Police Department and the city of Cherry Hills Village. John began his law enforcement career in January of 1986, making the transition from a background in aviation into public service. From the very beginning, his work ethic and leadership stood out. Within the first 5 years, John became both a field training officer and a motorcycle officer, quickly establishing himself as someone others looked to for guidance and expertise. Throughout his career, John was deeply committed to training and mentorship. He helped create and teach in the Cherry Hills Village Police Department Reserve Officer Academy, served with the Cherry Hills Village Police Explorer Post, which some of you may remember from many years ago, and earned motorcycle officer instructor, as well as standardized field sobriety test instructor and HGN, which is horizontal gaze and nystagmus. It's one of those DUI tests that we do on the side of the road. He also served as a DUI enforcement liaison to state and regional agencies, and in recognition of his efforts to improve roadway safety, he was honored as the Mothers Against Drunk Driving's DUI Officer of the Year in 2000. In 1995, John was promoted to sergeant, where he supervised the motorcycle and traffic unit and served in a wide range of critical roles, including, but not limited to, technical accident investigator, crisis intervention team coordinator, and field training unit supervisor. He later achieved the rank of senior sergeant, taking on important administrative responsibilities such as vehicle purchasing and upfitting and the selection of new police personnel. John's service to the city extended beyond traditional policing. He was assigned to code enforcement, trained as a stormwater and environmental inspector, and created the city's stormwater and water quality records database. Even after decades of service, John remained adaptable, returning back to police work as a senior patrol officer, and then later back to code enforcement and environmental inspection, continuing to serve wherever he was needed most. Separate from his public safety career, John also pursued his passion for aviation. He earned his fixed-wing pilot's license and trained as a helicopter pilot, reflecting the same dedication and discipline that defined his professional life. Today, we celebrate not only John's 40 years of service to the city of Cherry Hills Village, but his leadership, versatility, and unwavering commitment to the community. Beyond his career, John is proud to have been married for 30 years and the father of 2 sons. John, thank you for your, I guess now more than 4 years of decades of service to the city of Cherry Hills Village and for the lasting impact you have made on this department and this entire city. This presentation of your plaque, it reads as follows. The Cherry Hills Village Police Department, 40 years of dedicated service, presented to John Bayman. Thank you for your unwavering commitment, leadership, and service. John, congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, what amazing accomplishments. Thank you to certainly both of you and to everyone on our police force for all that you do for our community. And thank you so much. Thanks, you, Chief, for recognizing these outstanding officers in our meeting tonight. Audience participation. They're all leaving, so I'm assuming that there is none. We will move on to reports from members of city boards and commissions, also seeing none of those. We would move to the consent agenda, and if I could, I would like to remove the minutes, which is basically the only thing on the agenda. So I believe, Clerk Gillespie, that you said at the last meeting that we're using a new tool to help with the meeting minutes. And so I wanted to let you know that I did notice that. They are very detailed. I did have a couple of questions, and I don't know how this tool works, so I'm sort of giving it the benefit of the doubt that it got it right. Just out of curiosity, is it an AI tool?
It is, yeah. It takes a transcript of the recording, which then we review, and then it makes minutes out of that, which then we review.
Okay.
That's been the process.
So So on page 5 of 18 of the minutes, there's a paragraph about halfway down that starts Joshua Hester, Director of Grounds of Cherry Hills Country Club, and it goes on towards the bottom. It says, the club tries to plant no smaller than 7-inch caliper golf course or specimen trees sourcing from out of state, Nebraska, Kansas, Illinois, since Colorado cannot provide 7-inch calipers. I do remember, I'm wondering if that's quite exactly what he said. I do remember him saying that they often can't find trees like that here, so there's some, they're, brought in from outside. But the way that sentence read, and I'm not really concerned about it in the context of approving these minutes. The point is still the point. But just since I know this was a new tool, I just wanted to provide a little bit of feedback on maybe how it worked or things that it got right or didn't get right.
That was my recollection of what he said.
Okay.
When I read that, I thought that's what he said.
Okay.
All of the trees are sourced from
Outside.
So then if you look at the next page, and then the very first sentence on the top of page 6, maximizing playing conditions equated to very low water usage. Is that true? Is that what he said?
That doesn't seem a correct
It
sentence.
doesn't seem like a correct sentence, and it seems like, I guess what he was saying is that they try not to overwater so that the playing conditions aren't
be maximized.
soggy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember that is what he said. I mean,
Okay.
something similar to that.
Okay, yeah, it just didn't, I don't know, it caught my eye as being a little bit odd. Then on the next page 7, and again, maybe, I believe that it got it right, but down, let's see, second to last paragraph, Manager Black detailed improvements to the legend for clarity, splitting the previous unpaved trail designation. Oh, never mind. I just read that differently. Okay. Ignore me now. And then, so this is one where I think nuance maybe got a little bit lost. On page 8, the first paragraph, when I was talking about the trail that connects from Charlou Circle to Counselor Fisher's house, I don't mean it actually connects to Counselor Fisher's house. The area of, or near where Counselor, I just think that makes it sound like she has a public-private trail right to her house, which maybe isn't the best. Then the fourth paragraph down, Counselor Eber expressed concern. I think the last 2 sentences, this paragraph was talking about 2 different things. The on-street connector that had been shown on Cherry Hills Drive and the easement shown on the plat adjacent to that same street. But they were both conflated to be, in this last sentence, the Cherry Hills Drive area was definitely determined not to be a public easement, and therefore those designations are removed on the new map. There was never a designation of an off-street trail on the old map. There was only the designation of an on-street trail. And so it was not removed because the easement is private. It was removed ostensibly because the road is private, or ostensibly because they just didn't want to put it on there. I don't exactly know, because I wasn't part of that discussion. But I just feel like those 2 points were sort of conflated into one sentence there. The other ones are all just kind of, there are things that are questions that aren't worded as questions, but, and then I think the last one on page 10.
Well, let me jump in there, Mayor.
Oh, yeah.
On the end of that paragraph, though, I think that, I think it is accurate to say that Deputy City Manager Goldie represented to us and had made a determination that that was not a public easement. I think that was one of the things that we had asked for clarification within the legal opinion that, or the legal memorandum that may be coming forward to us, to support that determination that led to it coming off. So I don't know if it was definitely
Definitively
determined by
determined,
council.
yes.
It was perhaps by staff definitely determined that way. But
Or
I
maybe it
don't
was-
think that we have made that determination.
Yeah, so I think I maybe definitively determined might be a little too strong of wording there.
I think maybe if you combine the first half of that last sentence with the prior sentence, it makes more sense. The staff, we hired consultants to determine which easements are public, and the Cherry Hills Drive easement was determined not to be a public easement.
Yes,
know
maybe,
that
and
that's why
then,
it was
yeah, and maybe finish the sentence there, and then say, yeah, because there, like I said, there was no off-street trail on the old map either. So those are kind of two different things, and we were talking about them at the same time, but I just want to be clear what we're talking about. Then on page 9, the first paragraph, about third line down, Mayor Brown clarified that Councilor Eber's recollection is that Mansfield, like, first of all, I don't know that I can clarify what your recollection is, but that Mansfield, for example, is dedicated not only as a road, and so I think maybe that should just say, I think I was trying to restate what I heard him say. So maybe Mayor Brown asked, or, but I don't want to be clarifying what he remembers. Then there was one. Okay, then we're on page 10. 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph. Mayor Brown suggested there might be a way to indicate on the map where crossings are versus where they are not. City Manager Kramer agreed and suggested installing signs on both sides of University. That reads, I think it needs to say, and suggested also installing, because it sounds like his solution to my suggestion that we indicate on the map is to install signs on both sides of University, which is not on the map. So maybe, and suggested also installing signs on University.
Listening is not my strong suit, so maybe they're accurate, right? Who knows?
I mean, it might, I mean, like I said, I mean, I give it the benefit of the doubt, but, and that is it for me. Did anyone else have any comments on the minutes? Okay.
Can I ask just a kind of a more broader general question? Is this too detailed?
I had put, the one part that I suggested we could have lived without is the, on page 3 of 18, where it says, Director, at the bottom, or halfway down, Director Workman reviewed the 6 approval criteria, and then it goes through, those were all in the staff memo. And so I think just saying he reviewed the 6 approval criteria and leaving, as outlined in the staff memo, and leaving those next 6 paragraphs out. And like, we don't need to reiterate what was already in the packet necessarily.
Well, on the other hand, I like the detail, and I highlighted several places where I intend to look again before our next meeting when we discuss the trail map again, if we do in 2 weeks, as we're anticipating. So I like the detail.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, it does make a lot more reading for the minutes, but I do like the fact that we've had this conversation before, that, 10 years from now, when someone wants to come back and question why something is on the map or it's not on the map or whatever, there'll be some real information that they can refer to.
But a question, and I like the detail too, and this is helpful to know where we're going. But since we started recording our minutes, if we ever ended up in a situation, with legal situation or whatever, that we had to have official minutes, they'd be the recordings, correct? Not this.
Well, I think Clerk Gillespie probably knows better than I do the municipal records retention schedule and how long. Do we keep minutes forever? And I don't know about recordings, if that's the same or.
We do keep recordings forever. I don't know that we need to, but my understanding is that the minutes that you approve are the official record.
Really?
Oh, interesting. Okay, I always thought
So
it
for
was the
things like
recording.
depositions, is my understanding, they would use the minutes and not a video recording.
So that's
But if a
interesting.
recording's available, they could use both.
That's interesting
Yeah.
because
Part of, but
7 years ago or more, maybe. 7 years ago, there was a discussion about going to action minutes, if you recall.
Right. No, I do.
And I was not a proponent of that idea, but at the time, it was suggested that we could do that because the recordings were the official minutes. And that the printed minutes could just say action taken and not even have, it would just be actions taken, none of the discussion.
And that's what I recall as well. But the point being is that the recordings are exactly what was said. By whom, when, bad grammar, everything. It's all right there. I would not want that to be superseded by something that's printed at that point in time. I mean, that just wouldn't be right. I mean, I think that's an issue for us from a legal perspective. If we have a recording, that should be the official minutes. That would be utilized for whatever purposes we need. Don't you agree, City Attorney?
sorry, go ahead.
Or Laura,
I just
or
wanted
whoever?
to clarify, because you said that you wouldn't want,
I would not
want the
want,
written minutes to supersede the recording.
yes. that's
Okay,
right.
gotcha. Okay.
I mean, how could you do that? I mean, the minutes say blah, 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 and you're going, there it is. That was precisely what was said.
Well, I mean, your understanding about the minutes being the official record is based on municipal records retention schedule, or? I honestly,
more
it's
my
been a long time since
Clerk
I've looked at this.
training,
This
I'd
doesn't
have to
come
go
up.
back and look. But I know there has been some discussion on the clerk listserv about not keeping the recording for as long. I mean, minutes you keep forever. No question. The written minutes, I mean. And I do know that a lot of cities do action minutes just for the kind of the opposite reason you're going. Like they want less detail in there to come up in a court case or something. They don't want to know who said what.
Right.
They just want to know what was done.
Yep.
And one way to look at the recordings would be they're an aid toward preparing your minutes, which are your official record, right?
Right? I don't know if we can designate what our official record is. I'd have to look into that.
But does that argue for destruction of the recordings whenever it's legal to do so? If that's going to be the approach, it would seem to me it would.
I guess you'd have to weigh the likelihood of it being a liability versus the help it is to go back and look at the more detailed discussions.
And also just the potentially infinite data storage needs of recordings, like printed minutes. Yeah, I don't know. Well, maybe that's something that we
It
could-
is, the minutes are the official record by state law.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have a
printed
choice.
minutes.
Yeah, unless, yeah.
Could
The
we
open
not?
meetings law does apply on a statewide basis.
Could we not, if it was our preference, adopt the recordings as the official minutes?
No.
Why not?
Well, and that's my understanding. It's a state, it's open meetings.
Without researching this, I think it would maybe test the boundaries of a declaration of statewide concern. There are, I think, some home rule municipalities have played around the edges with open meetings law, but only in terms of like, from what I've seen, we can do an executive session for this one additional reason, which is really an elaboration on some of the identified ones in state law. It's not particularly big departure from state law. So I can look into that if you would like.
Well, you're
Well,
not
if-
saying
if-
we
At
want
occasion
to
to.
do that. You're just asking the question,
Yeah,
could
exactly.
we?
Could we? I don't know the answer to
But if it's state law that
Ar-
these have to
arguably.
be, and evidently we could have action minutes, we could have, I mean, you see that on boards all the time. I mean, people go to just drive it down to nothing. And so the state law says, yeah, you could just have a one-liner. Council met on Tuesday, January 21st, and that's the end of it. And that would
Well,
be
if you made any
statute.
motions, then.
Yeah, this
There's
was moved and
Motions and
seconded by this
votes.
person, and the vote was taken, and that's it.
whatever actions were taken.
And you,
Go look at the Littleton minutes and you will see
yeah.
some bare bones minutes.
Right. So what you have now actually is a pretty good hybrid of what it sounds like what you would like to have, right?
Yeah, well, I've just got a concern that says at the end of the day that we have recordings. I mean, that is what was done. That is what was said. Okay, that is it. And anything that conflicts with that, that is official, that's in conflict with that, I mean,
I
come on.
think-
I mean, we got a lot of attorneys here. I'd have a field day with that at the end of the day.
Something else
Field
to
day.
consider is that sometimes when you're watching the recording, what council did is not entirely 100% clear, which we found in some recent
Oh,
meetings.
absolutely.
But the minutes that are then approved at the next meeting can make that
And importantly,
Clearer.
reviewed and approved.
Yes.
Yes.
right. That's
But
Then
you are
maybe one reason why you'd want. at
as
least
we go down this
action
road,
minutes.
I think this is how cities end up with when they pair recordings for their to keep as with beyond a retention schedule, and they pair that with the official record, which is just the minutes. You can quickly see how those minutes get shortened and abbreviated really quickly to avoid those potential conflicts that lawyers might have a field day with.
Because that's what I do. I mean, I like these, it gives you a sense of it. But when I've got a real question, I'm looking at these to go, okay, kind of where is this at the end of the day? And then I go to the recording and I watch the whole thing.
Sure.
And I don't even refer back to this. That's what I bring to council is going, hey, this is what was said. And that's, I think actually, to my knowledge, that's what everybody does.
I do a combination of
an
both.
issue.
I mean, for me, and not to rehash that action minutes discussion, but for me, the importance of these minutes is the searchability. And I know many, many, many times during my service on council, I have referred back to times when things were discussed and to understand, what was considered, what wasn't. I think most recently, when there was, talk of lights at Kent, I went back and looked at the minutes from those meetings and the neighbors that came and what they had to say. And, was that a condition of the original approval or wasn't it? And all of those kinds of things. And so I know for me, at least the printed ones are absolutely invaluable. And I know they take an enormous amount of time, and hopefully this tool will help speed that up. Generally speaking, I thought it did a pretty good job. And if it saved you a ton of time, then I think it did an excellent job. And the little weirdnesses of it, I can probably live with if it meant that, if it cut your time in half or more, so.
Mayor, I might ask just one more. Laura, with the software, were you asking, council if they thought that it provided, if that was too much or too little detail? Because you have the opportunity to almost tell the system how much or how little detail
Right, yeah. So I used the long format for most of the meeting. I used the medium format for reports.
Okay.
So if you see a difference in level of detail between those two sections, that's why.
So keep that in mind as you provide feedback to Laura, because it might help us give you what you're looking for better.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Well, with that, I would entertain a motion then to approve the minutes.
Move approval of consent agenda item 7A as amended, and has it been amended? Do you have?
Well, those were the changes that I suggested, I think.
Right, so are we doing all the changes? Just want to make sure.
That's what I'm asking. That's what I was curious about.
I think the ones that we agreed to, or that I guess I would like to propose, is the one about the trail going to Counselor Fisher's house. The changing the sentence at the top of page 6, maximizing playing conditions equated to low water usage. If that's the correct statement, maybe it could just be reworded in a more meaningful way. Then on page 8, in the fourth paragraph, the conflation of the 2 points about the on-street trail and the off-street trail. So I think the suggestion was hired consultants to determine which easements are public, and Cherry Hills Drive area was determined not to be a public easement. And I'm not positive, is Emily here? No, I'm not positive if those are the reasons it was removed from the map. Or if that was just, if it was just the decision of the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Commission to remove it, but I don't know. And then finally, on page 9, first paragraph, I didn't clarify Counselor Eber's recollection. I'm not sure what I did. I restated, or
I think you suggested that
suggested maybe, or asked. On page 10, fourth paragraph, City Manager Kramer agreed and suggested also installing signs. And that's it.
So is that, Laura, is that clear to you? I mean, you know what the changes are?
Yes.
Okay, so then I move approval of consent agenda item 7A as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Next topic is unfinished business, fences adjacent to state highways. Director Workman.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. Pardon me. The next item on your agenda this evening is a follow-up discussion related to fences adjacent to state highways. For the benefit of council and those that may not be aware, excuse me, council has talked about this several times in the past. Back in 2024, council amended the fence ordinance to its current condition as it exists today. As part of that process, the council at that time wished to discuss specifically fences adjacent to state highways. That discussion was initiated back last summer in June. The first discussion with this specific council was to come back to council with some additional information related to the different fence areas and what's allowed and some of the specifics of how that might look in the real world, that sort of stuff. That follow-up discussion was in July of last year. During that discussion, the council asked that the Planning and Zoning Commission be presented with two options. The first option would be to grandfather or allow for the existing non-conforming fences adjacent to state highways, or two, to create an administrative set of criteria that would allow for the reconstruction of existing fences adjacent to state highways. In September of last year, the Planning and Zoning Commission discussed this topic. At the end of their discussion, they did vote unanimously for council to implement the option number 1, which is to grandfather existing fences, and they cited 4 reasons for their recommendation. The first is the relatively small number of properties that are impacted. The second is that many of the impacted fences are maintained by HOAs and generally in a pretty good condition. The third is just the general cost for fencing, specifically for fencing adjacent to state highways, which can often be taller, have more opacity, that sort of stuff. And then fourth and finally, the cost and time associated with administrating new code provisions. Again, their vote and their recommendation to you was to grandfather those legally non-conforming fences. Should that be the direction that council decides to move forward with, staff has taken an opportunity to draft some potential language. The specifics are all provided in your packets for this evening. But essentially, if that's the direction council wishes to go, we could add a section to the non-conforming fence section of the ordinance that would basically allow for the lawful reconstruction, again, highlighting has to be the same material, same location, same height, all those sort of things. So if it truly is a like-for-like condition, they would be allowed to do the reconstruction as the fence exists today. Any proposed changes to the like-for-like condition would then trigger compliance with the underlying fence requirements for fences adjacent to state highways, which includes the offsets or the landscaping or some of those types of features. That concludes staff's very brief presentation. Certainly, I'm available for any questions you may have. Really, we're looking for feedback from council in which direction you wish us to pursue.
All right, thank you. So there has been a lot of discussion on this. Is there any further discussion?
I have some
Oh, yeah,
questions.
Councilor McGuire.
So, first of all, just so I can be clear, here we are only talking about fences that are on state highways.
That are adjacent to state highways, that's correct.
Okay, so that would not include Clarkson
Correct.
or Holly, I guess.
That's correct.
Okay.
Or Happy Canyon.
Yeah, it's Hamden, University, and Bellevue.
Okay, oh, right, okay, so not Colorado either, okay. And in terms of fences, I was kind of, in reading the discussion from Planning Commission, it seemed like this wasn't discussed as in-depthly as perhaps we discussed it here. But
Not surprising.
I only have the minutes, so, you know, I didn't go back and watch a film or a recording. So they said, the small number of properties impacted. Fences that are non-complying along the state highways, do we know how many fences those are? Is it a small number? I mean, I have no idea.
It was an anecdotal observation from the Planning
Okay.
and Zoning Commission.
Okay. Yeah, and again, the fact that many fences are, so the homeowners association comment was that most of them are well-maintained. It's only the ones that are maintained by the HOAs are well-maintained, and maybe the ones that are maintained by individuals aren't. As
Correct.
Okay. I'm assuming time associated with the administration of a new code provision isn't going to be any different than administering the old code provision. Would it be?
The detail for that is going to be based on what the new code provision would be.
Okay.
There's likely to be
Administrative criteria and all that.
I'm sorry?
The administrative criteria and all that, if we went that.
There's likely to be a little bit of increase in times to review it against those criteria and the fencing standard, whatever that standard is, but it would be nominal.
I thought one of the options that we had discussed was that if in fact there aren't that many fences that are going to be impacted by this, and maybe this was when we talk about the administrative alternative, was that we were talking about possibly a variance procedure where if you come and just, demonstrate why you can't comply with the new code, that there would be a more liberal variance, call it variance or something else. I know some people don't like to use, want variance to be kept at a pretty high standard, so maybe we call it something else. But there would be a process for saying it's unreasonable for you to make me comply with the new code provision. I still like that concept, I guess. That's what I'm putting out there. And is that what you were contemplating when you said there could be a new administrative process?
That's correct. Based on
Okay.
the last conversation with council, the direction was to go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission with the grandfathering option or the option to create whatever we call it, whether it's a variance or
So that's the
exception, exemption, but have a set of criteria that's within the code that would authorize the director to issue a permit for reconstruction of a legally non-conforming fence.
And Councilor McGuire, that's my recollection as well. I think one of the examples was not having to take down large trees as an example.
Exactly. Because I look at, and I realize this is, there's not a lot that are as egregious as this, but the one along Bellevue that's the big concrete wall, I don't want them recreating that. I don't want them coming to me and saying, well, yeah, we're going to do this again. It's like, no, I really don't want that there. It looks horrible. So, and maybe that wasn't compliant when it was put in, because that's, I guess, the other thing that I don't recall talking about, but that's important is, was it compliant with whatever the standard was when the fence was originally installed, right? Legally compliant. I mean, I think you talk about legal non-compliance.
Legally,
Is the concept that
Right.
it was compliant when it was built. It's just not now,
correct.
because we've changed the fencing standard.
If I had to guess, I would say that it was where in the timeline that Director Workman pulled up, he didn't go as far back as to say that we changed the fencing ordinance,
It was like 2015.
yeah, like in 2015, to create these setback standards and the indents and the landscaping. That was never required before. So that was a new requirement. And it was brought forth again because there were several things that had, over time, we made these changes. Now let's evaluate, how has it worked? What has the impact been? And there were several different issues that had arisen as a result of that. A lot of them were addressed in that first pass-through.
2014.
And it was at that point that we're like, well, okay, all those are great, and we adopted those changes. They included some along Colorado, they included some other things. And the one that had not been really considered or addressed was the state highways. And so we said, please go back and, do state highways as well.
Oh, that's
So-
correct, yes.
Yeah. So there were changes in around 2015, around that time, to make, and I'm assuming that that wall was built well before that, so.
Most of those existing fences, as you see them today, most of them are likely to be legally non-conforming. They're legal, they were permitted and allowed at the time they were constructed. They don't conform to the current standards, which makes them non-conforming. To that point, that standard didn't come into play until 2015.
Mayor.
Oh,
and
yes,
just-
Councilor
I mean,
Robinson.
the intent of all of this is to encourage these folks to repair their fences and improve them, right?
Yes. I
I
mean,
think
that
we need to
was,
keep
yeah.
that in mind.
That was
So-
the nature of the discussion that we had, and then we didn't come to much of a resolution here. So, and we needed to ask the Planning and Zoning Commission anyway, because it falls within their purview. So we did send it back to them. They considered it. They have recommended grandfathering.
Well, and to that, I mean, and I think it was Counselor Robinson, I mean, that is one of the things we're encouraging these people, which I think led to, I think it might have been your suggestion, which was, hey, it's grandfathered or you have a period of time. I mean, in other words, get this done within 2, 3, or 4 years. You can put it right back where it was, the way it was. But if you go past that period of time, now you're going to be going back to the ordinance. I mean, that was driving them to do something rather than leave it, as I recall.
Yes, that was exactly my point, is that we want to, I was going to say that next
Right,
there.
and so that
We want
was
to
one of.
incent them to do it and maybe having a period, and I had suggested 3 years, others
Yeah.
said 5, but anyways, a period of time where, they could fix the fence grandfathered in compliance. Otherwise, they're going to be out of compliance and have to deal with the council
Right.
at that time.
And that was one of the comments that I'd written down, the two things, because again, I've gotten the sense that, this is here, we want to move forward, we want to put something in place. That was one of my questions is, okay, what do we want to do about that? We either want to add that or we don't want to add it. The other thing then that we talked about that I recall was, we talked about like for like or better. And, the difficulty there is, okay, you got to define better, but then I'm presuming that if we didn't do that, like for like is exactly what it says, and if somebody came in and wanted to do it better, they'd have to apply for a variance because it wouldn't comply with the code.
Well, that would, pardon me, that was based on the council discussion was a like-for-like replacement to your point, the issue with introducing or better is better can be subjective.
Right.
My recommendation would be if that's the route that council wishes to go, we define what better is in the code. But yeah,
But then what's the last, what the last part is that if we didn't do or better, if it was
Correct.
just that, if somebody wanted to do better, that would be a variance.
they would have to
Either have
then
to
meet the
comply
code,
or-
or they would have to
Yeah.
apply for a variance. That's correct.
Right, which,
Isn't, I don't see better as all that difficult to comply. It's more in line with the code today, right?
We don't
And,
have any aesthetic, our code doesn't generally address a lot of aesthetic things. Materials, and I do remember in that initial fence discussion and back in whenever it was, 2015, someone suggested, well, we should not allow chain link fences. And people at the time specifically said, no, we're not the style police, we're the city government. This isn't about what I think looks good or what you think looks good or what, this is about how people get to use their property and what demands we're making of them. And so I think or better becomes very challenging for me personally. And better for whom? Better for the people who drive by or better for the people who live there or better for the neighbors or better for, so.
but then, and I understand, and you did make that argument, it's all coming back to me now. I'm the old guy here, so it takes me a while. So then if someone came, someone's got a wood fence up, they're gonna replace it, and they're gonna replace it with brick. It's gonna look just like Cherry Hills Farm West, which, for lack of a better reason, somebody might think that's not better, but I'm calling it better. It looks nice, et cetera. They'd have to apply for a variance. And then by doing so,
Or they
mean-
just have to do the setbacks and they have to set it back from the property line, or they have to do the indents, or they have to do.
right, but where I want to get to is that that's what they'd have to do if they wanted to swap out those materials and make it
Well,
better.
they have two options. They can either
Yeah,
apply
no,
for a
yeah.
variance to put it in the same place.
Yeah, I got it. Let me, I want to, I need a yes to that or a no, okay? I mean, that's what I need. No.
No, you don't have to apply for a variance.
So you could improve it.
You could comply.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Forget that. They want to swap out, they don't want to build this wooden fence, which is what they have. They
Yes.
want to make it brick.
Yeah,
That's not like for like.
Right.
They'd have to apply for a variance, and at that point in time, applying for the variance, they got a variance, and then now you're going to get into that argument anyway.
so,
Why
but
did-
my point is no, they wouldn't have to apply for a variance. They could build a brick fence that's set further back from the street, or that has indents and landscaping, or that they have options. If they want to build it right on their property line
No, I get
as
that.
brick, then they're going to have to apply for a variance,
Okay, good, that's what I'm looking for, which.
which
Well,
they may
yeah,
not
yeah,
get,
I'm not,
which they may not get, but yeah.
it's that piece, I'm trying to get to your point, which is saying, hey, we're not the aesthetic police, we don't want to get into that business, et cetera, et cetera. I come in there, I do that, I say, I'm going to put up a brick fence right here where a wooden one was. I'm putting in a variance. As of that moment in time when it gets approved or whatever, then the next person comes in and goes, well, why did you let that guy, change his wood fence to brick, and I want to put in a concrete one? Well, we don't think that's better. I mean, what are we going to tell them? You're in it, you're in it.
Yeah.
You're in where you don't want to go.
Well, I don't think they would get a variance because the criteria for a variance is pretty strict. It isn't just it looks better. They wouldn't be granted a variance because somebody thought brick looked better. They would be granted a variance because it met the hardship criteria or, whatever all those criteria are.
I thought I was over my own. Does anybody see what I'm getting at here, or am I?
I see what you're getting at, but I disagree that that's what would happen. Because they're not going to, if they just want to do it because it looks better, they're not going to get the variance. So no, nobody else is going to come in and say, why'd you let him do it and not me? Because we didn't let him do it either.
Mayor, let me see if I can jump in
I
here.
don't
And
think that's true at all.
I don't want to jump over others, but, I do recall that we did have a discussion of like for like, and we did have a discussion about material changeovers, hopefully to an improved. But we don't legislate materials. We aren't the art police. I also tried to focus a little bit in the last discussion on the idea that this is hopefully going to be an infrequently utilized tool, so that when we talked about somebody who had a historic tree that might have to come down. Let's go all the way back to the beginning here. Nobody requires anybody to have a fence on a state highway. If they choose to have a fence, just like anybody else in the city, it is a independent decision of what that property owner wants to have. Ordinarily, with that decision comes the consequences of following the code. I thought what we were trying to really address were the infrequent occurrences where compliance with the code would cause a hardship. To me, like for like is in the same location, meaning not set back, and not necessarily with respect to the materials. I think, and I look over to our attorney to say that, confirm, but like for like to me means the same location. When somebody makes a voluntary decision to change over or put up a fence, we ask them to comply with the code. What we're trying to do is make it so they don't have to have setbacks or that they don't have to make, cut-throughs so that they can get hoses. This is to get around that need for the few instances. So to me, the location is the like for like, not the materials. And so that if
But Rob,
somebody
can I
came in.
just ask you a question? I
But-
mean, why wouldn't you just say in the same location? Why would you use like for
Well,
like?
I think that's what I am thinking like for like means, in the same location. So what I'm saying is, when that's the case, we don't get to, it may be unsightly for somebody to come like for like and go from a wood to a concrete. We don't get to make that call. We are only trying to get around a problem that we have in our code because it's difficult for somebody to replace a fence and not mow down a historic tree. It's difficult for them to, the cutbacks or whatever it is, or getting out to water the landscaping or something like that. I think we're trying to say that those are infrequent events. So I would be willing to say like for like includes the location and leave it at that. As for, and well, height and opacity, you're saying that our code allows 8 feet on a highway and somebody may now only have it at 6 feet.
No, somebody has 10 foot.
Do we have any 10 foot? I don't think we do.
I'm not aware of any.
I guess my point is opacity. I mean, I think we looked at opacity along some of the, we didn't change height, but we did change a little bit about opacity on Colorado Boulevard, if my recollection is right.
So
Is it
But-
black? That's 100% opacity on.
I'm sorry, I can't.
only if it's not on the property line.
Right.
On a state highway, you can build it on the property line if it's opaque, or if it's not opaque.
If it has transparency, if you can see through it,
So-
then you can build it on the property.
Yes, so kind of to one point, that's sort of what the existing thing says, is this was part of the problem. If you want to build it in the same place, you can, you just have to make it see-through, which on a state highway also means noise through and dirt through and all of that other stuff through as well.
I guess my answer to you, Counselor, is that I haven't thought about opacity and height in this situation. I mean, I'm trying to make this where it is infrequently used because we want to encourage, and the economic argument, I think, is important but not determinative. I'm not minimizing the expense of a new fence, but I am saying that the decision to want a fence carries a certain price tag to start with. And designing it so that it's got cutbacks or that it is, where you can get hoses through and landscaping on the backside, I don't think is an incrementally large number. I think what we were trying to do is to say, what do we do to preserve historic features like trees, like berms, or something like that? And that, to me, was, I favored a little bit of the variance process last time. I still tend to think that I favor that, because the argument that there are only a few houses or private houses along our state highways is really, I mean, it may be small in proportion to the overall number, but I'll bet you there are 50 or 60 houses along our state highways.
That's pretty small.
Well, I was going to say
So,
that seems like a
I think
pretty
the-
high number, but I would say of those 50 or 60, I'll bet only 5 to 10 of them have historic trees that are really a reason not to have to comply. Physically makes it impossible unless you mow down something of significance.
So I think the concept behind the like for like, including the materials and everything, was basically a compromise to say, look, the new fencing ordinance that was passed in 2015 was intended to eliminate these fence canyons and basically is a little bit of the style police, right? We want it to look good. And these fences, the reason that like for like was a compromise was because these fences have been here for at least 50 years or more. We've lived with it that long, and the way that it looks. Is it really that much of a leap to say, you want to build the exact same thing and just replace, exact same thing, go for it. If you want to start getting into making changes, then you're going to need to comply with our code. And that includes the opacity and the setbacks and the landscaping and all of that kind of stuff, basically, which in theory, if our ordinance was written correctly and the reason it was intended, that is making it better, quote unquote. That was our definition of better at the time. And so we basically said, if you want to just leave it exactly the way it is, go for it. But if you want to change anything, then you have to comply.
I mean, I want to follow up because it goes to my prior point, and that is just that argument, though, could apply to lots of places that are not on state highways. Just because they're old doesn't mean.
But those
that
people
like for
have
like-
those, a lot of them already have the option. It's the state highways really that didn't. So I feel like we need to go back and get the minutes from our previous hours-long discussion about this topic.
My only comment is that old lived with it before, so we can live with it in the future, to me, is not the basis for the exception. The exception, to me, is that there is a feature worth keeping to apply.
That wasn't the reason, it
Right.
was the compromise,
Right.
right? It was the compromise between, well, how do we define what's better? And how do we write these variance criteria? And how do we do all of this? And how do we not make it so subjective that we end up with one person getting this and one person getting that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And how do we define how big of a tree is a historic tree and is worth preserving or not? And how do we, it's just this infinite list of trying to imagine every possible scenario that someone could have for having difficulty replacing their fence.
Isn't the counter to that, though, Mayor, Councilor McGuire, what you said, I don't get your words right, it's a variance or not, but staff has given some liberal ability to offer the
Staff
variance.
doesn't want rope.
So-
Staff never
so
wants
that-
rope.
So that's the question. I mean, is this as difficult as the mayor is describing it?
The short answer is yes, it can be, right? To piggyback on the mayor's example of, let's just say that it's council's desire that trees become the magic criteria for whether or not you can move the tree, right?
Or move the fence, yeah.
Sorry, move the fence. You're correct. Is it 5 inches? Is it 6 inches? Is it 7 inches? What if somebody has a 5 3/8 and the magic number is 6, right? What if somebody has a 7 inch, but the tree is 49% dead and 51% alive. Is that enough, right? And then who gets into making that decision? Do we get a certified arborist to make that decision? Do we as staff get to make that decision? So that's just the tree example. And yes, there can be a very lengthy list of issues that can arise. And that's part of the reason why the Planning and Zoning Commission didn't want to go down that route, or is recommending not going down that route, is because the subject, whenever you say or better, or when you start to introduce criteria like tree size in this example, those criteria automatically, even if it's just a miniature amount, become somewhat subjective and put staff in a position of making a decision, which we do all the time, right? We make interpretations of the code all the time, but it does open up some subjectivity for a grievance to be brought to council why staff made a decision on this property versus that property.
No, and I think that's right. I mean, I don't think we wanted in staff to have that flexibility. I mean, the issue is where does the judgment lie? And I did feel, and I think I said this at the time, if I were these people, I'd be applying for a variance, and I think they'd get it. Okay, I mean, they might not, but the point is that's what the Board of Adjustment Appeals is for, is to provide those variances, if that's where it lies. Or is it us? Who is it?
It would be the Board of Adjustment and Appeals.
Yeah, it'd be Board of Adjustment Appeals. But we were coming back and saying, well, we want to get them out of that variance thing for whatever reason. It's okay, we're going to make it. And it's only on state highways. That's all we're talking about. We're not talking about any other aspects associated with it. It's just state highways. That's it. And I think these people on state highways would get variances if they wanted to apply for them. But we came back and said, well, we want to do something with the code to make it clear at that point in time, and it was that compromise that you were talking about, Mayor, I think, which I'm fine with as well. I'm also fine if we went back and just said a variance, because again, I think they'd get it. I mean, I think if you went in there and said, look, if I do this, I'm going to tear out these, the Board of Adjustment Appeals is also supposed to look at the master plan. I mean, the master plan guides all of our commissions and councils and what have you. And you'd sit back and go, it's not guaranteed, but you sit back and go, hey, if I have to do this, I'm going to take out 3 of these 50-foot trees.
I don't know, is there a criteria in the variance criteria that would allow for that, though? I don't know that
Special
there are.
circumstances, unique circumstances associated with the lot.
But you have to meet all the criteria. It has to be the minimum necessary, all of those things.
Without having lot specifics, in general, my conversation with folks when we have discussions about fence variances is there's a criteria that says there's no design alternative available. Not a more aesthetic, less aesthetic, more convenient, less convenient, more expensive, less expensive. There is a design alternative where someone could put the fence behind the trees and not touch the trees. And whether or not the board would buy that argument, I have no idea. They would have to make that case to the
Right.
board. It introduces some uncertainty, but that's one example.
Right, and what I'm saying is, and it does, I mean, and that's the thing, is evidently we were trying to take that out because that is the point. I mean, having sat on Board of Adjustment Appeals, you'd sit back and go, okay, put that fence way back there. There's a design alternative. My God, I'm giving up 20% of my lot.
Yeah.
The Board of Adjustments and Appeals I've sat on would take that into consideration and go, that's unreasonable at the end of the day. I mean, but there's no guarantee. The current one might not.
Well, and in theory, you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to take that. If the criterias all have to be met, then they have to be met.
No, I know, but that's
So
part
you're
of the
kind of counting
criteria.
on a BOAA to, well, right, the criteria is there's no other design alternative. And so if somebody comes in and says, here's an alternative, the BOAA shouldn't say, oh, well.
No other
we can
design
set up-
alternative that basically allows that any other property owner doesn't have to deal with at that point in time. So you're sitting back and you're going, I got my fence sitting right on the property line, and I got to take mine all the way back. That's unique to my property that nobody else around me has to do. That's the way that's what they look at. They might lose, but that's what they'd say.
Correct.
Right.
But they also have a fence right on the property line right now, too.
But anyway,
So
we
it-
wanted to get rid of this, and that's why we're
Yes.
looking at that.
subjectivity
right?
part, yes. The subjectivity and the uncertainty of the variance process, and how that could be applied in varying circumstances, I think was what the compromise was trying to avoid. Counselor Fisher, you haven't.
Yeah, I have some questions. Good. If I may, for Director. First of all, I wanted to say, I really appreciate what Planning and Zoning did. And we're asking you questions. I know their meeting was over 4 months ago. So.
That's okay.
But I too had a question about whether they discussed Counselor Robinson's suggestion that a lot of us liked about, remember we talked about maybe sending them all a letter and saying, you know, you have 5 years or some period of time. Did they discuss that period of time, or did that not come up? It wasn't in the minutes.
My recollection is it was brought up, but not thoroughly discussed.
Okay.
It was, one, that wasn't part of what council had asked them to evaluate.
Okay.
And two, that comes with its own set of issues related to enforceability.
I mean, the reason, as we've stated a few times, I think that that some of us liked that suggestion was to encourage them to go ahead and make a change if they were considering it. Just so that I'm clear, Glenmore, Buell, Cherry Hills Farm, are there any other neighborhoods that have HOAs that are on?
Yes, there is the Sunset Drive neighborhood that has an HOA, which is right there at the southwest
Okay, so
corner of.
So I was wondering about that because they were mentioned as some of the fences that are legally non-conforming, but yet, so I wondered, well, maybe they don't have an HOA.
No, they do.
Okay. Okay. Are there currently any, you said most of them are legal non-conforming. Are there any, you don't have to name the addresses, but are there any illegally non-conforming that you're?
I would assume that there are, but I don't have the properties or the numbers. But I would assume that there has been some illegal fence construction in the last 10 years.
So,
Right, but we wouldn't know those until if and when we got a permit.
so I guess I'm just figuring we would send a letter to everybody who has a house on a state highway telling them about this new.
Right.
And outlining for them how to be conforming.
That, if that's a direction from council, we can certainly do that. It's not been the city's practice to notify all affected property owners when we do a legislative change to the land use ordinance.
Okay.
That
So
could be
that's-
problematic in and of itself, but if council wants to do it on a specific issue like this, excuse me, we certainly could do that.
Right, okay. So if we agree that if we adopt what planning and zoning recommended, that in any way that might encourage some people to improve their fences, then it seems like we would want to notify them.
We certainly can do that if that's the direction of council. Again, we don't typically notify affected property owners when there's a legislative
Okay.
change to the ordinance, but if this is an important enough issue for council, we certainly can do that.
Okay. Well, again, I respect what planning and zoning discussed. I feel like they have as good a feel, better feel than anybody about exactly which fences we're thinking of. So
Counselor
please
Robinson,
let
or
them
yeah,
know.
sorry, Counselor Robinson.
Just going to say that, that I also respect what they've done, their consideration, and I like this grandfathering concept. I think the like for like, while not perfect, is maybe the best that we're going to get to. And I would like to add a time frame, open to what that is, to encourage people to, you know, hopefully put up a new fence. And so I think the grandfathering with the time frame, that's how I'm thinking about it.
May
Then
I
we
ask
would
a follow-up
discuss it.
question to that?
Yeah, but then we would discuss it at the end of the time frame. Yeah.
I'd also like
Is
to
that what you're saying?
notify the homeowners.
Okay. So would that be, let's make just for conversation purpose, let's say it's 5 years, whether it's 3, 5, 2, whatever it ends up being. Would the desire then be at the end of that 5 years, that would be the end of the grandfather period, in which case they would have to meet whatever standards are in place at that time?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Or go for a variance,
Or go for the variance or meet the standard?
or meet the standard, right?
Okay.
If I can ask a clarifying question to Councilor Robinson's point, or saying a like for like might be the best we can get to. That was in there as kind of a placeholder we wanted to hear, but tonight there's been some really fruitful discussion around opacity and height and location or alignment and things of that nature. Would it be helpful if and when this comes back to you to have those set forth so that there's a little more precision other than like for like that would convey your intent to those that are subject to the code and help those who have to interpret it?
I think so. And
Yes.
in fact, I think that Counselor Eber, a smart, learned guy, basically said, hey, like for like to me means this. Okay, that in and by itself said, we need to define what like for like is.
Exactly, and it was intended as
comment says you have to-
from my part, left alone to see where the discussion went, and I'm hearing some
Exactly.
really good feedback that could help us nail some of this down.
Let's go back
I
to the
think
process.
the original discussion, and it doesn't mean it has to stay this way, but the original discussion was same location, same height, same materials, basically exactly the same.
I'd like to go back to the process for a minute. I wasn't done asking
sorry,
questions
yep.
about it, and we got into some of the details. What happens in 5 years? Are you going to enforce? Because I think I heard, and I'm not casting aspersions, whether it's a legal conformance or an illegal conformance, today we don't. So what will happen in 5 years?
We do enforce. It's now you have to rebuild it if you apply for a permit to rebuild your fence and you're rebuilding more than 25%.
Any fence construction should get a fence permit, whether
Right.
you're over or under that threshold of 25%, so that we can track
Yeah.
how often it's being.
So right now, if you replace less than 25% of your fence, you do still need a permit, but you can do it kind
Like
of.
for like.
Like for like
No, but
already.
I'm saying in 5 years, I've done nothing. I've gotten the letter warning me.
So then.
5 years expires, what happens?
The current code applies to you, and if then you want to build the same fence exactly where it is, you can only do 25% at a
So you
time.
could leave it the lap of, falling apart for another 5 or 10 years.
Oh, yeah, or 20 years, because you can't be forced to replace your fence. I mean, we can't do that. So,
It's, in many respects, just kicking the can down the road.
kind of, I mean, yeah, it does, there is nothing we can do to force people. I think Counselor Robinson's point before was exactly, so let's do something to incentivize it, which is why you would create this time frame where, if you do it now, you can do it this way. If you do it later, it's going to be maybe more of a headache.
Yeah, except you don't have to do it at all, is my
No, well, you never have to replace your fence. I mean,
Mayor, I just, as a little bit of context, I have worked in jurisdictions where there has been a desire from the legislative body to incentivize some action, where they can't force the issue, they can't obligate somebody to spend money on an improvement. They will often do things like give you a regulatory holiday. They will sometimes incentivize through a temporary hold on application fees, anything they can do to urge a property owner to come build or do whatever it is that they're trying to improve.
Chris, that's kind of getting at what I'm talking about. What is the public purpose here? And the public purpose is to conform to the current 2015 code. And by doing what we're doing, it doesn't really do that. But maybe by adding some incentives or other, it does. And
Well,
I think that's what you were trying to get at.
I think
Wrong?
the purpose of this is really up to council, right? I mean, the code as it exists is really what staff has. Whether or not you want to grandfather the standards in is saying, do you want to allow some people to not have a fence that's falling down, and that the fact that our current 2015 code disincentivizes people from replacing their fence? Those are two separate goals, right? Making them meet the 2015 and then allowing people to rebuild. So I guess that's really ultimately probably the question for council. What's the goal?
Question, so they would still need to apply for a permit, right? Like for like?
Correct, that's correct.
So we could reduce the permit or do some other measure.
Yeah, there's, to
Consent.
city managers,
That seems to be wise. We could not only grandfather for a period of time, but we could say the permit is half or whatever. If
I
you're
like
in
that,
situation or something like that as well. So make it obvious that this is an incentive for you to improve your fence.
Mayor, let me see if I can jump in here for a second. When we talked that there's sort of a 5-year grace period, I was thinking that on 5 years and a day, you are no longer eligible to keep your fence length for length in that location at all, and you are now subject to the new permit. And then I got to thinking of a comment that was already made that you can replace 25%. Some of the conversations I've already had with city manager about fences and things like that. And really, here's a question. Are we torturing the code to solve a problem that can already be solved by somebody? It just takes them 4 years. And that is
I think the answer is no.
Well, but the answer is if you replace your fence 25% at a time, you can put it back in the exact same location
On a
that it
state
is.
highway, I don't think that's a reasonable people haven't done it. And we
Well-
have explicit examples of people who have been trying to do this, and they haven't done it because you can't get the same materials, you can't, do it at the cost of doing it, getting a whole crew out there, masons and whatever,
do
and you
only
can only do it
25%.
every 5 years, so it's more like 20 years. Right? It's 25% every 5 years?
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years, okay, so it's 10 years.
Well, but what I'm trying to say, though, is, and I'm not saying that where I come down on this, that it is or isn't, but there is already a mechanism in our code that allows a length-for-length switch.
Yes.
It just takes 10 years.
And it hasn't happened.
And
We
it
have
hasn't
created-
happened.
Yes.
And so the question really, though, is are we interested in incentivizing that change, not changing? I think we're changing our focus a little bit here. Because before we were coming up with exceptions, and now we're just saying we want to incentivize people to change over their fences next to state highways. And that's an entirely different animal. I mean, if we choose to do that, so be it. But, all the discussion that we had about magical trees that, it's all moot. If you really go to this 25% every 2 years.
But no, so the conversation started to the point of what is the purpose. The conversation started here. We passed that code in 2015. It had some unintended consequences. Those unintended consequences were that it made things so burdensome for some people that they just haven't done anything. Because in order to do anything, they're either going to have to cut down their trees or they're going to have to get crews out there over 10 years, so they're just leaving it. And there are multiple instances where this has been the case. So the purpose was, how do we remove the obstacles and remove the unintended consequences to allow these people who would like to make their fence better than it is now? We are basically making that too burdensome. How do we remove that obstacle? And so the compromise that was, all kinds of things have been discussed over the course of a very long period of time, was, look, if you just want to do this, let's keep it simple. If you just want to rebuild the same thing as it is, you don't have to do, to your point, Rob, you don't have to do the 25% thing. You can just replace the whole thing exactly as it is right now. As long as you're just keeping it the way it is. If you want to start, and the only reason that the like for like was in there is because once you start changing things, then what changes do you allow and which ones don't you allow? And it just gets very complicated. And so keeping it simple was to say you can do the exact same thing in the exact same place, and you can do it all at once right now, or if you want to do anything else at any other time, you can do what's in the code.
The only thing that bothers me about this, and I'm not sure I'm willing to die on this sword, but or fall on this sword, is what you said is for some people, this is too burdensome, and I get that. So the solution is, then guess what? Nobody has to comply if you live along a state highway. You can all just keep what you have. And and I feel like we're on one hand, throwing out the baby with the bathwater, right? Because a few people have an unusual situation, we say, guess what? Everybody can just keep their non-compliant fences and rebuild them, and we're going to have non-compliant fences for another 20 years until they fall down again. Whereas we can say, if it really is so burdensome, then come to us. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same standard as for a standard variance. We can have a different standard for this. Now, absolutely, you get into the argument of, is it a 6-inch caliper? Is it an 8-inch caliper? But it is something that the Board of Adjustment can handle, and I think with discretion, certainly. Having said that, if we want to do a 5-year grandfather and after 5 years, forget it. You have to comply with whatever the new thing is.
So if I recall the conversation around that, and I do like the incentivized idea, I think the conversation around that was, so the people who miss it, now their fences are falling down, and
you're going to have the same
like,
thing.
what do we do to incentivize them, right? So the idea was to remove the barriers that are preventing people from rebuilding their fences. And the ones along the state highways, if you really, where we got a little hung up last time we discussed this was that we're only talking about state highways now, so there wasn't the context of what we require for everybody else. Everybody else already has a lot more leeway than the people who live on the state highways.
But I think, and when you talked about, the issue here is that there are people that want to do something and it's been too burdensome. And there are other people that don't want to do anything.
That's true.
And they're not going to.
Right.
Okay?
True.
And so from that perspective, and I like the notification thing as long as we're allowed to do that. Obviously because then you're basically making sure everybody knows and goes, hey, you people that have been waiting, here's your shot. And those that really don't care, throw in the wastebasket, you ain't going to get them anyway. I think I like it. This was the compromise we came up with, and I do like the incentivized thing as opposed to the demand thing. We're incentivizing. That doesn't mean we're going to get it. We're going to encourage people. And by the way, if you've been on, no pun intended, before I even give it, if you've been on the fence, wondering whether you ought to do something or not, and you wait too long, too bad.
So is there consensus on the 5-year with a letter if it's legal, and grandfathering plus an incentive of some sort? Because that's, Susan, you described what bothers me as well, which is, there's going to be a bunch of people that just don't do it, and we still have fallen down fences. But at least try to incentivize that. So adding that feature, and I know I'm mixing my metaphors.
No, to be clear, you, just for the record, you can absolutely send the letters. That is for sure. That's, yeah, it's a courtesy. It's just information. Don't let that be
And
a.
just to be clear, 5 years in one day, somebody's going to come in and say, well, I never saw that letter.
Yes. Or what's going to happen is somebody's going to move in 4.5 years and say, I want to replace my fence, right? And they don't have that opportunity because they didn't live there until that long.
But that's taking something, doing your due diligence before you buy a property. I think that's my response to that type of person. But I think that the question of the burden, I want to get factually a couple of things correct. Are we talking about 25% over 2 years, or are we talking about 20% over 2 years? Because that 5% really is an 8-year period, not a 10-year period. Am I correct?
It depends on the size of the fence.
No, if you're doing 25%
25
every 2 years, it's 8 years, not 10 years.
Sorry, yeah, I said that right.
So
25% every 24 months is the way the code says.
So it's 8-year cycles.
Yeah, sorry, no.
But a fence lasts, it's not like they're constantly going to be every 2 years replacing 25 in ad infinitum. Once you put a fence in, the hope is that it lasts 30 years. Even if it's a wood slat fence. But that's one thing. And then economically, you can go to Home Depot and get an 8-foot section of 6-foot high cedar fence. 6, not 8, not 10, for $75. what would you guesstimate is the biggest distance? 500 feet? I don't know. Do your math, but my point is, and then you have to have somebody doing the install work. But this is not
They can't do, well, they can only do
25% of the time.
25% of it, yeah.
So my point, though, is I don't really buy that this is an economic burden
Well,
right
that's
off
not
the
what they're,
bat.
but that's not what they're building, and that's not what they have now, and that's not what they want to replace it with. But
Well, you're right. I'm talking about a wood fence, and
Yeah.
you're talking that somebody might have something
I don't
much
think-
more significant than
I
a wood
can't think
fence.
of, well, there are a
Do
few
we have-
places where they have wood fences along Bellevue down there, but most of them have some sort of either stone pillars with, or brick, with wood in between, or.
I mean, I'll stand corrected and say that my economic argument, I thought we were talking that most of what we see that is not attractive, that we want to incentivize, was a wood fence. Is that not the case?
I don't think that's true. I know of at least one case where it's brick and wood, it's brick columns that are original to the 100-year-old house.
And the brick columns are in bad shape.
No, the brick columns are fine, the wood is the part that's in the bad shape, but they
but again,
can't
that's-
replace the wood they can only replace 25% of the wood
Right.
at any given time, and it's a, 2.5 acre lot. It's not 25% of one side, it's,
Are we
right?
25% of a side?
The code breaks it down into the length of the fence being replaced. If you have a square lot, then 25% of,
would be like one side.
exactly. No, you could do 25% of one side.
You can do
Oh,
25% of
one
every
side.
side. You can do
Right, but you-
25% of every side.
Correct.
So again, I'm having a little bit, I'm not.
Would you do that, Rob?
Would I? Well,
Yeah. I
would
mean,
I replace
let's put
25%?
ourselves in these positions.
I
and-
would replace 25% if I wanted to keep it in the same place. And as a council member, it seems like we're going to an awful lot of work to change our code to accomplish something that affects relatively few people. And, I do think if we went the variance route, there is a standard industry procedure that says at 4 feet, you measure a caliper or something like that. And if you measure it in two different directions and then you take an average, I mean, it is pretty easy to figure out whether something's 6 inches or not.
Oh,
If
but
you
I
set
don't
it
think
at
that's
6
the
inches,
issue.
But I guess the point is,
Yeah.
would I do that? If I wanted to keep my fence in exactly the same spot, and I didn't want to conform with the current code, and the way to do that is 25% times 4, I personally would do that. I have a different economic mentality than most. Let's just say that.
And so you would have, let's say you wanted to, you have brick and wood fence, and you're going to replace it with, you're going to fill in the wood with brick because you live on a state highway and that's a better sound insulator. And you're going to live with your fence broken up into chunks for 8 years.
I don't assume that the remaining 75% is already on the ground so that I've got.
No, it's still there, but you've got like 25% brick, and you're gonna get a mason out there every
2 years
2
later.
years to do, and to get the same materials and to
Some
get the
people
same.
will. Some
I mean,
people
some
will,
people
some
will,
people
but
won't.
it's,
Why don't we move on to, I think we have a consensus that people
Okay.
are
I
willing
agree.
to vote.
I think we need to move on.
that, and I
And I know
believe
we've
what
got
I
another
heard
issue
is
coming up
that,
that's going to take a lot of
Yes.
discussion. So.
but we're not voting tonight, but I believe that the consensus is grandfathering with a time period, I've heard 5 years. Nods in that general direction, and that we would.
If that's I just want to say, if that's a consensus, that's a consensus. I never weighed in on a time frame, and if it's taken 8 years to do it at 25% of the time, I certainly don't give them 5 years, because the whole idea is that we're trying to speed this up. 5 years versus 8 years isn't a material speed up. I would turn around and my argument would be is, look, if we're going to do this, we got 2 years.
So I think, yeah, okay. I think there are two different ways to look at this, and one of the answers could be that we just don't want to do anything at all. The question is, are we trying to get people to conform to our will, or are we trying to facilitate people doing something that makes the village look better?
Trying to do the latter. We're trying to facilitate people to get them to do better. And in the process, and when you're doing something, you go, and what else can we do to make this better? There's an opportunity. It's just, and I know I raised this once before. I mean, when we did it with the undergrounding of the utility lines and things of that nature, and we sat back and we said, long time ago, if you're replacing a certain percentage of your house, got to bury those utility lines.
Yep.
We did that because we wanted to encourage people to do that. We wanted that to happen. That's an okay thing at the end of the day. So it's the latter that we're doing. And since we're doing it, well, what else can we do here to make this a little bit better and get it to go in our direction? And that's adding the time frame.
Yes.
I agree that we are asking these people and we are trying to beautify the village to the extent that we are in the aesthetics business of telling, a fence is a beautification or an improvement. I think we're overbroad, Mayor, in your, do we want to help people do something that improves the village? I think the question to me is, that's an easy yes. The question on the other hand is, at what cost? And to me, the question is the cost in terms of the number of exceptions that, many people could make the code. They don't have a magic tree. They don't have any of these things, but yet they're going to take advantage of this when everybody else in the village has to comply with the codes, notwithstanding what the difference of state highway or not. They just have to comply with the codes. They don't have any magic reason that led us to do this. And then the other piece is just, what is the cost of the torturing of our code? We're by the number of hours that we've spent on this, talking about it now is probably about 4 hours of discussion time to be able
it's
to
far
make
more than that.
something worthwhile. And I don't know, to me, I don't know that that's really where I would go.
Okay. So I appreciate that comment. I do think that of the remainder of council, there seems to be agreement on a grandfathering clause with a time frame that 5 years seems about where I'm seeing head nods, and notice to people who live adjacent to said state highways that there's a wonderful opportunity. And if you've been on the fence about your fence, now's your time, now's your chance, right? And I think that hopefully will help address the burdens for at least the people who live here now, and then the council in 5 years can decide what to do
we
with
had
that.
agreed to, which maybe it's left to staff to determine if it can be worked out, but some incentive to move to the current code when you do rebuild, as opposed to rebuilding like for like, whether that's
I guess we would look for council for input on that. I mean, like there's permit fees we could look at. There's review timelines we could look at.
Yeah, you could expedite, you could jump permits to the front of the line.
That's what I'm saying,
I hate
review
that one,
timelines.
just for the record. That
Yeah,
was
I don't
horrible.
want to do that. I'd
Really
rather
not
just have
with
a
where we
different
are.
timeline.
Permit fee seems reasonable.
but the others agree. I mean, to me, that solves the
Yeah,
problem.
right-of-way permits.
No,
So
that-
let me make sure I understand. So one option would be to grandfather in your existing thing, but as an added bonus, if you want to upgrade your fence to comply with it almost makes it, yeah, well, if you're gonna comply with the code as it's written, you get a discount on your permit fee.
Yes, and maybe that's within
How
the
much is a
first-
permit fee for a
first 2
fence? I
years,
don't know.
Councilor Ebert. Maybe that's in the first 2 years.
It can vary. The standard is 1/4% for Arapahoe County use tax, 1% of the valuation for the permit fee. If it requires building consultant review, it's charged by the hour, however many hours they take.
That sounds very complicated.
And there's also potentially a right-of-way permit involved if they're going to occupying the sidewalk or storing things or that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, obviously, we couldn't waive the Arapahoe County use tax. We're not going to
Correct.
pay that for people. But all we'd really have a lot of control over would be maybe the 1% for us.
Which is maybe a major incentive to some property owners. It's not going to be a major hit to any
No,
city
not to
budget.
most. Okay. Okay. So maybe that's not a real incentive then in the end.
But just, I do want to clarify, I think we have enough that we can bring back a good first attempt for city council to wrestle with. But I do want to make it clear for all of council, what we're bringing tonight, you are not deciding anything. You're just giving us some direction to bring back something to you as a starting point. There'll be every opportunity for all of council or individual council members to amend, change, so that's all still out there. I just want to make that clear.
And
And then we'll also include the little bit more definition on the like for like, which I think is a great idea.
yes, and just to set expectations, before there would be any formal hearing with council for adoption of any language, would have to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission as well for their recommendation to you guys.
Okay. Okay. So we're looking at another, it's just been going on for so long. Sorry. I mean, it's going on 2 years now just to make this change. Okay. Next up is the Council Bill 1, Series 2026, Bill for an Ordinance of the City of Cherry Hills Village, adding a new Article 2 to Chapter 13 of the Cherry Hills Municipal Code, enacting an industrial pretreatment program on first reading. Director Goldie.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Before you tonight is the first council bill of this year. It's a bill for an ordinance of the City of Cherry Hills Village to amend, to add a new Article 2 to Chapter 13 with it, which is our municipal utilities chapter, regarding industrial pretreatment program. So in 2016, the EPA instructed the city of Inglewood to establish an interjurisdictional agreement that would provide Inglewood with the authority to implement an industrial pretreatment program. So in 2017, Inglewood came to us. We amended our IGA. We thought those requirements would be enough. And last year, the city of Inglewood, so the city of Inglewood, South Platte, Renew, all the same thing. The Inglewood Littleton wastewater treatment plant is owned by both of those organizations. Inglewood does all the work. The city attorneys do all their work. So it's now the South Platte Renew. So they notified the city that we need to do an amendment to our code, that the IGA was not enough to meet the EPA's standards. And so we have worked together with city attorney, and we've run this by City of Inglewood's attorneys to ensure that they are okay with this, and they agreed that this would meet the intent, and we'd hope that then we would be done with this agreement and we can move on, because this truly only applies to one of our sewer users. It's the Cherry Hills Country Club, who's the only industrial user. But it would also apply if, for some reason, one of the residents in our sewer districts were changing their oil and putting that down, and they could trace those back. So under this industrial pretreatment, enforcement is also possible for non-industrial uses that are putting pollutants into that system.
Does it apply to Glenmore also, or just?
Glenmore is not in the city's districts. So the city, that's in the City of Cherry Hills Sanitation District. Sanitation districts are a lot different than municipalities. So the sanitation district was, could easily just say, we accept whatever is in the municipal code from the city of Inglewood. And because they're a special district, it's a lot easier. We, as a municipality, had to go do a little bit different. So that's why we determined with the city's attorney and their office that to make this enforceable and to make it as clean as possible, it would be best to just adopt a new Article 2, which is basically what the city of Inglewood has in their code, but some changes to make sure it's enforceable and meets our standards also.
So are we basically delegating all of Cherry Hill's responsibilities under this code to Englewood?
We, in the original IGA or the amended IGA, we already delegated those to Inglewood. So they do all the permitting and inspections. And this is now trying to make it more enforceable as the EPA has required.
Just a question, Mayor. Yes, Director Goldie, have we had any discharges that you are aware of?
No, in my 20 years, we have not had any discharges that would violate this industrial pretreatment.
Councilor Holland.
One is, I think I know what the answer, I know what the answer is, but I just want to ask this. You sit back and say, we don't have the capacity to administer that. My sense is probably what you're saying is that it's uneconomic for us to be able to do this. Or is it literally, we can't do it? That's what your memo says, we don't have the capacity.
No, literally, we can't do it. We don't have the staff, we don't have the permitting processes in place, we don't have a certified operator that could do that. We'd have to take that to.
Right.
And so, yes, that's why we originally gave everything to Inglewood to.
Absolutely. But it's really an economic, later on, we're going to talk about a work plan, et cetera, et cetera. It's always a situation going, hey, if we don't have the resources, in this particular case, we don't have the resources, and it would be uneconomic to do it.
Correct.
Okay. The other thing, which gets to a little bit of there is, it's amazing how long this thing is. It's going to be the longest part in the code, I think. There's a bunch of stuff in here that, a lot of provisions bounce. City of Inglewood, city. City of Inglewood, city. It's all over the place, and I'm assuming that it's been looked at, and you've done that. But like, for instance, on page 17 of 66, which is also 65 of 250 in the packet, responsibility of the city may delegate its authority, makes sense, and its police powers to another entity by agreement, including without limitation the city of Inglewood. And then it says, by the way, we are giving this to the city of Inglewood, and it's in here. And it wouldn't probably happen, but if we wanted to designate somebody other than the city of Inglewood, would it require a modification, an amendment to the code provision, or is that one word agreement in there enough?
Look at the last sentence of that paragraph. Talks about, or any other valid designee.
Yeah, I understand that. I don't think that answers my question.
I would say that would be a very remote possibility, given.
Yeah, it is.
It is, but you have the authority to delegate your police power wherever. And should we, and right now you're also bound by this IGA, right? So if you were going to open up the patient, yes, you might want to change that provision if you want it, but I really don't see that happening.
And again, you guys work hard on this, so I spent some time looking at it. That's what we do here. And I know this is picky, but I was just wondering why wouldn't it just say you could designate, by a letter, and we don't hereby designate Inglewood in here. We pass this, and here's the letter, we're designating Inglewood. So
That would have happened if we thought maybe that there was a reasonable possibility that we would
Right.
need to have that kind of flexibility, but in this case.
In case you just feel like, okay.
We're going to designate it to Earl Holland.
Well, it's spending some time looking at a lot of work that was put into this. I don't have any other questions.
All right, anyone else? Seeing none? Yeah, Counselor
Can
Heller.
you just explain the strict liability provision in here? I don't know if anybody else noticed that. I don't understand the description and how it matches the term strict liability. What page? That's a good question. Sorry, 50 of 250. No issue with it, I just want to understand it.
What's of the 66, which page of 66 is it? 2 of 66, thank you. Oh, yeah, the city count, yeah.
Hey, go dump some oil down the drainage pipe in front of your house right there. It doesn't matter, you're liable.
Yeah, they're saying that their intent is not a defense, that the mens rea for the lawyers in the room here is not material to any kind of determination of whether or not a violation occurred. And on top of that, for what it's worth, we had to adopt what Inglewood's code said.
Yeah.
Yeah, the part that was confusing to me was that the very end.
Microphone. Microphone?
Yeah. Microphone.
The very end that says intention may be considered in aggravation or mitigation, which is contrary to strict liability, it seems like.
No, I think what that's saying is that in terms of whether or not a violation occurred, we don't care if you didn't mean to. But if you did it, and if you did it recklessly or willfully or wantonly, then we're going to amp up your penalties.
But the real answer is we have no choice.
Yes.
That's the other.
It has to match Inglewood.
That is the other real answer. Yeah.
So, if there's no other comments on the thing that we can't really change, if we.
I
that
move
changes-
to approve on first reading Council Bill 01, Series 2026, adding a new Article 2 to Chapter 13 of the Cherry Hills Municipal Code, enacting an industrial pretreatment program.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Heller?
Yes.
Counselor Eber?
Aye.
Counselor Holen?
Aye.
Counselor McGuire?
Aye.
Counselor Robinson?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. Moving on to Resolution 5, Series 2026, accepting a donation from the Cherry Hills Village Police Foundation on behalf of the Cherry Hills Village Police Department. Chief Lyons.
Thank you. Good evening again, Mayor, members of council. The Cherry Hills Village Police Foundation is lucky to have had another good year. A significant number of donations came in 2025, 2 of which were restricted for specific purchase of equipment. Had one family who donated $30,000 toward this particular endeavor, and then another $7,000 of $18,000 that was donated by the 2025 graduating class of the Citizens Police Academy. So for a total of $37,720 for a specific purchase of a very progressive piece of equipment. Just a little edification, the equipment is called TrueNarc. It allows for scientific analysis of suspected drug materials without the officers having to expose themselves to those materials. It essentially, and I'll speak it in layman because I'm not smart enough to understand the scientific portion of it, but it essentially uses a laser to identify suspected drug material and give us immediate results so that person could be charged with the possession of whatever that substance is. And again, our officers don't have to test it manually, which has always been the practice. You actually have to open the container, take a portion of the drug, pour some liquid into it, or crush some ampules to get what they call a presumptive positive on the drug material. This piece of equipment allows us to do that. There's only a few of them in the Denver metro area. We're very fortunate to have the opportunity to purchase this piece of equipment, and again save our officers the exposure to what's likely dangerous drug materials, especially with the increase of fentanyl that our officers are coming in contact with. So certainly appreciate the foundation's continued support. This will not be the only donation before you. There'll be another significant donation in the upcoming weeks or months. So I would ask that the city accept said donation so that we can purchase this piece of equipment. Thank you.
Thank you. One quick question, is it like this big or? this big? Or?
It's
Tell me
smaller
when
than
to
a bread
stop.
box. Yeah, so actually, it is. It's probably 6 by 6,
Okay.
but bulky.
Yeah.
But the laser is so extreme that it'll pierce through plastic containers, plastic baggies, those modes of transportation of suspected drug material, so that the officers do not have to.
And it's just
expose
portable. They can drive around with
it is, yeah. There's once they're trained in its use, it's almost like a 1986 camcorder. Yeah, so
All
it
right.
kind of looks that way too.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 5, Series 2026, accepting a donation from the Cherry Hills Village Police Foundation on behalf of the Cherry Hills Village Police Department.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. That passes unanimously, and thank you very much for the very generous contributions from our community and continued support for our police officers and the Police Foundation. Moving on, I will recess the Cherry Hills Village City Council meeting at 8:20 p.m. and call to order the meeting of the Cherry Hills Village Charlou Park Third Filing General Improvement District Board. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Forgot about GIDs.
Oh, sorry. Or the secretary, I'm sorry. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Counselor Heller,
Here.
Counselor Eber,
Here.
Counselor Holland,
Here.
Counselor McGuire,
Here.
Counselor Robinson,
Here.
Counselor Fisher.
Oh, and don't I have to do that one too? Oh, no, I'm already here. Sorry, it's when we go to vote. On the consent, the only item of business is the consent agenda.
Move approval of consent agenda item 13A.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And that includes me. And any opposed? None. That passes unanimously. At 8:21 p.m., I will adjourn the meeting of the Cherry Hills Village Charlou Park Third Filing General Improvement District Board, and I will call to order the meeting of the Cherry Hills Village Southmoor Circle and Hudson Parkway General Improvement District Board. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Board Member Heller,
Here.
Board Member Eber,
Here.
Board Member Holland,
Here.
Chair Brown,
Here.
Board Member McGuire,
Here.
Board Member Robinson,
Here.
Board Member Fisher.
Here. Again, the only item is the consent agenda.
Move approval of consent agenda item 20A.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. At 8:22 p.m., I will adjourn the meeting of the Cherry Hills Village Southmoor Circle and Hudson Parkway General Improvement District Board and reconvene the Cherry Hills Village City Council meeting for our reports. I had the opportunity to attend CML's Mayor's Summit last week, and I'm going to pass these things out. I picked up these booklets, and I have one that I'll leave with the city manager as well. But there were several interesting presentations. This one from CIRSA, in general, has a lot of valuable information that pertains to how we all act and serve as council people. It has information about open meetings law, and how not to get on the wrong side of that. It has information, I believe, about executive sessions and how not to get on the wrong side of that. It just has some really useful information. So I would encourage you, this is sort of a personal enrichment guide. Think of it as a self-help book for city council people. And so I just grabbed a couple copies so that everybody could have one, and you can look at it at your leisure.
Can I ask a question? Did you
Yes.
read it? Did you read it yet?
I have read parts of it. I haven't read the whole thing, but they gave a presentation about it
Okay.
in the.
And the reason I'm asking is because just sort of thinking about the work plan, I was curious. I know we didn't do it last year, but does council ever have sort of a retreat just for council? Well, and I mean, it would include the city manager, but sort of to talk about norms, operating norms and code of conduct and goals, and maybe
Yeah.
even a self-assessment of how we think we're doing and stuff like that.
We have, to my knowledge, we have not done anything like that. And I think
Does it not recommend that that's best practice?
No, they don't. I don't think they talk about that in particular at all in
The
here.
CML does.
Yeah.
I looked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Sursa's thing. So, but I do think that, something along those lines. And I know one of the things as Sursa was giving their presentation, it was clear that these people, it was being done by Tammy, I'm not sure
Tenoy.
how to pronounce her last name.
Tammy
She's the first
Tenoy.
name on there. Yep. And Sam Light were the two people who were there. And it was clear that other communities in the room, Sursa has training programs that they offer on a lot of these topics too. And it was clear that a lot of the other cities in the room had used them and then that some people had actual issues. It was a really interesting presentation because it gave all of the mayors an opportunity to talk about challenging situations that they've been in and maybe how they've handled that. And so they obviously offered their services. I'm sure there's some cost associated with that, but I imagine Sursa is.
No, and at the risk of stating the obvious, CIRSA has a liability focus, right? Their whole goal is to mitigate liability by inculcating best practices and training CML as the governance, how to run things effectively and get things done. And CIRSA really is a much more narrow focus. And I don't know if they charge anything. I've attended several sessions from Tammy and Sam, and they're very good. They're very precise, but it's all about, if you follow all these rules, it really helps your pool and its members.
Yes.
I'm almost positive that she presents every year at the CCCMA conference, similar, but it changes every year. But I'm almost positive she says at the end of that, if you want us to come do some,
It did seem like and they were one of the sponsors of the summit, so they had their table there with these and lots of other materials. And I do remember, I don't know if we do this anymore, but when I first started on PTRC, there was a video that we all had to watch as a new person. And I know that we do, we do one training session. I guess you guys went through it most recently. We do one training session for people when they join council and it's done, and then we don't really do kind of continuing education. And
2 years later, we usually do another training session
Well,
for the
yes,
council members,
yes,
and we
here.
invite the old council
Yes.
members,
Although
whether or not they
in-
choose to attend.
for 8 years there, it was the same people, and so we didn't.
Well, and I will tell you, this was one of the topics at the CML government officials training when I attended it earlier, I guess it was fall.
Okay.
That,
This CIRSA presentation,
well, I don't know.
or just
I mean,
generally the same?
it was. I thought it was more of a CML presentation.
Okay.
But it covered generally the same things, and they were heavy duty. I think they might have handed this book out as a resource guide, but the idea there again was protect yourself from yourself and your community from liability, and following these ways, and how to make sure that you don't disclose secrets to the point that you jeopardize decision-making, how to make bulletproof decisions, things like that. So
I mean,
it was
even
very
just-
helpful.
I think it's broader than that, though. It's, it's
Yeah.
also how effective and efficient can we be in our, deliberations and meetings and so on. So I think it's worthwhile. Should we do it as part of the annual retreat or
Well, I
separately?
think I think our annual retreat is coming up very fast, and it's already got a pretty full agenda, but I do think it might be worth looking at scheduling another time. Maybe it's not a whole day retreat. Maybe it's just maybe there's a time where our agenda tends to get a little lighter during some parts of the year, and so maybe rather than canceling a meeting, we could do something either from
Let us
daytime or-
let us reach out to Tammy, and we will get some basic parameters about options. Maybe they have a entry,
suite of-
a small one, a medium one, and a
Yeah.
all day or something, right? So let us get some basic details. for you.
Sam definitely has, I've been with him, I work with him a lot, but he'll do like a 1 or
Yeah.
2 hour bit. Yeah.
And I don't know whether, maybe, I don't know that this is necessarily the right one. Maybe CML might also have something that, so I don't know. I leave that to you but I do think I know it's been a while since I've attended something like that, and I can speak for myself and say maybe that would be beneficial. So that's it for my report. Counselor Heller.
No report?
Also, no report.
No report, although I would like to just say that hats off to the police department. Horses were running down University the other day, and on behalf of Tracy and Blake Ebel, who accommodated the police by allowing the horses to be stalled in their paddock until they got back to their rightful owners. So hats off to the Ebels. But the main point is they were so pleased at how, and their horse owners, they were so pleased to help, but they were so pleased with how the police department handled that whole situation. So,
There were horses running down University?
yes,
When
and,
was that?
So they,
Okay. Okay. And is that the beginning of our mounted patrol? Yeah, were you starting mounted patrol?
it was like, it
It's
was
part
like,
of an effort to maintain quasi-rural, semi-rural status, right?
wasn't it like
Exactly.
a couple of ponies, small ones, and then a regular sized one or something like that? Yeah.
Wow,
That's,
okay. That's
so,
interesting. Never a dull moment.
yeah.
Counselor McGuire?
No comment. I mean, no report.
No comment.
No comment.
That too. Counselor Robinson?
Just a brief update for the council. So we're in the middle of granting period at the Region 16 Opioid Abatement Council. And so we've had a couple of meetings now over the last couple of months where we are spending money, significant amounts of money, to try to improve the substance abuse prevention, treatment, and other programs in the county. So a lot of effort is, not so much on my part, but on the consultants and others is going into that. So that's been some interesting and something that's going on.
And last but not least, Counselor Fisher. And by the way, thank you so much for organizing the hat coat drive and everything. I'm sure you'll mention that in your report. But
No, I wasn't going to mention that again. I mentioned it 2 weeks ago, and then I'll give you an update after the drive is done. No, I have a different question. I guess it's my night to add things to our calendar. I hate to say that, but Mayor, you and I had discussed something else that you've done sort of sporadically, is my understanding, is that occasionally council has hosted some sort of a thank you for all of the people who serve on our boards and commissions, and invite them and maybe their spouses and any staff that would like to come. And is there any interest in doing that sometime this year?
yeah, we
And I even offered to host.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. You had mentioned that back at the end of last year and pre-COVID, really, and even maybe for a little further back than that. We would do a volunteer appreciation, and that was a wonderful opportunity. You know, I'm not going to put anyone on the spot here and say how many people on the board, on all of our boards and commissions could you identify if they were sitting in this room, right? And it kind of in keeping with Councilor Robinson's efforts to kind of keep the pipeline going. Not only, I think, is it a great way to say thank you to people who are all volunteers for our community, but it's a great way for us all to get to know each other and get to know who some of these people are, and perhaps get more people into the fold, get more people interested in serving on council at some point in the future. And so I think it's a wonderful idea. I'd love to bring it back. I think I've only attended one that was hosted by Mayor Chrisman. It was at her house, and I believe she probably just paid for everything herself. I attended one event here, well, at the old City Hall. And that event, different representatives from each commission, it was more of a presentation. It wasn't as much of a social activity. And they all kind of presented to the group what their commission was working on. So I don't know if we have a budget for anything like that or how we would go. And Councilor Fisher has offered to host it. I don't know if she meant just completely host it, but I think it'd be wonderful.
Well, and it is a wonderful idea. And obviously, nobody could argue with the concept. What I will say is, I attended that one at Mayor Chrisman's office as a member of council. I attended one that was held at the Buell Mansion when I was on Board of Adjustment and Appeals, and you didn't get a big attendance. Okay, and part of it was, and I was curious, and it was like, because our volunteers are sitting back and going, don't make me have to take some more of my time to come and do that. You can't argue it. It's a wonderful idea. It's a wonderful concept. It's everything that you just said, opportunity, et cetera. It's just wonderful in that regard. But my recollection, both as a member of one of those commissions and then as a member of council, well, you just didn't get a lot of them coming out. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I'm just passing it along. Just
The one I remember, I would say maybe had 30 people at it. And there's only, there's 7 of us.
There are 27 members currently of
Yeah.
boards and commissions. I counted them up because they were listed in the most recent
Right.
crier. And I just wanted to say that it sort of ties to my other suggestion that I think that I would assume that we would all share a goal of wanting to personally thank our volunteers and also put faces to names. I know I need to, for sure. But I also don't think that we would need to do it every year. Because then I really don't think people would come. So if it's been a while.
It has been a while, for sure.
And, we could talk about how to structure it, but it seems to me that we should all be the hosts, and I would be happy to have it at my home if that works.
We would love
But
for you
know
to
what I
have
mean?
it at your home.
What I'm saying,
And we'll all take the trail right there.
no,
to
no,
it.
yeah, the trail right into my house. No, what I'm saying is, we're inviting you.
That's very generous
Is what
of you,
I
yes.
is no. I'm saying all of us.
I know, but that's very generous of
Oh.
you to host it
Well.
and have it be from all of us. That's very generous of you in multiple ways.
Okay, well, that's not what I was going for, but it seems to me that it should be, that council should be hosting something like that.
Yes, I think that would be
And not the mayor.
appropriate.
And
No, yeah.
not,
No, it's the.
So if I can just jump in, and I'm going to look at some staff members who've been here longer than I have to chime in if needed. I do think that there has, from staff's recollection, there were more successful social events in people's homes. The last one that was held that we can remember was actually just shortly after this building opened, and 2 people came.
And it was you mean here or in
This
somebody's
building.
home? I mean, it was
Council chamber.
held here, yeah.
It's held in this council chamber here, not the old building, in this one, and 2 people came. And so my point is, if council wants to do something like this, I think the tone and the vibe, to quote my son, is something to keep in mind if you want to get more people to go. More of almost an appreciation party kind of vibe.
Yes.
Right. And I think 2 keys would be, one, not to plan it for next month, give people plenty of notice, and talk to each of the heads of the commissions and get them to encourage their people to come also. Because I think if you know there are going to be other people there that you're more likely to go, as opposed to if we just send out an invitation and they don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so I don't know, next steps wise, I guess, would be to try to find some sort of date. And I don't know if you have a thought about even like time of year, or since you're offering to open your home, is there something that works better for you? Tomorrow? Is that right? Okay. Well, I think that'd
I
be.
agree. I don't think it needs to be, in the next 2 months, but it seems like May gets really busy, so how about April?
Okay.
Just throwing
Sure.
something out.
I think that, yes, no, April, okay. So let's,
Like a Thursday night kind of thing, Thursday afternoon, what, just so we can start going down a road.
Yeah.
What?
oh, okay.
What's that?
Okay, so maybe we'll send out some, an availability sort of, pick a few dates and at least get availability here first, and then we can move to other people.
Yeah.
So again, thank you for bringing that up. I think it's a wonderful idea. Moving on, city manager.
Yes. So for my report, you may have seen in the packet, and I've heard a couple people reference it tonight already, regarding a discussion that we would like to have with council regarding some updates to the work plan. Just as a little bit of background, when I first started and through the years, mostly driven by city managers more than city councils, there's been a wide range of work plans, sometimes a non-existent work plan. When I first started, the work plan consisted of anywhere from 10 to 14 items on Jim's whiteboard, not in any particular organized fashion, no real timelines. They were literally just handwritten. Since that time, we've worked hard to provide some more structure to it because it really is a useful tool for us as staff. So in 2023, we made a number of changes. Basically gave it some more structure so that it's more beneficial. We organized it by department, tried to make it so that it not just every little thing goes on the work plan, but things that really council has an opportunity to provide direction on. Bigger projects, sometimes they last longer than a year or two. The work plan, that we redo it every year, so it's an annual exercise. And then I started to provide in 2023 just basically a reflection of how we did on the previous year in my evaluation for city council, my self-evaluation. So the other element that we added was the timeline for its creation. This is the part that's much to chagrin of my own staff because we have to start working on right now. We talked about it staff this morning. We need to start thinking about the 2027 work plan, because at the retreat, we give council a very first preliminary draft of some big picture projects that might be on the work plan for 27. Then in the retreat, there's an opportunity for council to give us feedback. It's important for council to realize that this really forms the foundation of our budget process. So that's why it's important to start before we get through the initial kickoff of our budget. So then in October, when we do the budget, we present the updated version of that based on input from council and other input things. The new projects emerge from a variety of sources, and so we update it. And then in December, I include the most recent version to you with my self-eval. Since you received the last version of the work plan with my self-eval, I have made some changes to the format of the work plan. There was an attachment in your packet. Hopefully, you've had a chance to at least just scan through it to see. It looks a lot different now. We organize it by department. We have two parts now that are significantly different. We have the operational plan. It's really how we get by on a day-to-day basis to keep the city running for a lot of reoccurring tasks. I'll just use a couple of examples as I go through this so that you get an idea. There's one line on the operational plan that says process land use applications. It's just one line, looks simple. Just knock that out real quick, check the box. Well, that right now there's 6 site plan amendments. So that one line is a huge amount of work. Then there's other things that are, very routine. Every day we are doing that task. So those are really, the operational plan is really a staff-led way to help us ensure that we are hitting everything we need to hit to really handle a lot of the day-to-day. That's different than the strategic plan that we call out separately. That's really kind of the classic work plan kinds of items that we as staff and you as council have worked together on over the years. Those would be the items on Jim's old whiteboard, would be on the strategic plan. Those are, city council focused, longer-term initiatives. They sometimes go over multiple years, just like the ones we talked about before. And they often have big budget impacts. They're discretionary budget impacts, right? So in your work plan, hopefully you saw how that's broken out and how that's different. There's obviously a lot of new information for you. You get to see, not that we want to hide anything from you, but you certainly get to see behind the curtain a lot more about a lot of our day-to-day on what we do. I think that's a good thing. It also helps you see everything that goes into a lot of what we do to keep things, to keep the lights on, so to speak. So there's a lot of benefits, in my opinion, to breaking this out into sort of 2 separate work plans. I do think it'll also help us as staff focus better, at the retreat and at the budget time and at the end of the year with the strategic plan. That's really what we're going to be checking in with you on at those key check-in moments. I also provided for you, there's just been a number of changes to the work plan. There's always updated changes at the end of the year. This year in particular, though, we wanted to highlight there were more than usual. And so there was a separate exhibit C, B and C, I believe, maybe. Yeah, the changes. And it shows, it's organized by department, and it shows there's only a couple of deletions for each. Most of them are either continuations in the strategic plan or additions in either work plan. Wanted to call your attention to that, not so that, we're just so you're aware and informed and keeping you up to date. An example of something like that might be, so you know why we added it, the Nexus study for impact fees. Well, that wasn't on the March or even the budget work plan, but that obviously got added late last year, and we certainly need to do that now. And so it needs to be added to the work plan. So that's an example of the kind of things that got added. So I'm going to stop there for just a moment before I go to the next part and just sort of ask any questions, any feedback, thumbs up, thumbs down, don't like the colors, whatever.
We're not discussing the individual items.
No, the intent was not for, this
is all in
This is an
preparation for
overview so that I want to make sure that we do a good job of communicating to you. You didn't just see this and go, what in the world is this? And where's this coming from? And, I just want to help provide counsel with the framework of it so that as you go through it, you can understand where we're coming from.
No, I like it. And I think in particular, it's helpful when, I know we've had a lot of conversations around making sure that we're addressing things in the master plan, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just important for us to all be aware of how much is already going on. To your point, the Nexus study isn't in the master plan.
Right.
But we do have to do it. And, that may mean that some of the things from the master plan don't get worked on as quickly, or as Earl always likes to say, this is how much we can do with what we've got. And if you want us to do more, then we're going to need more. And that's a council level discussion. So I think this helps highlight.
Well, there's one other option in that paradigm, because the third option is to readjust priorities.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so, Mayor, thank you for setting up the next. You don't need to go yet. Oh yeah, just leave it right there for right now. So, the last exhibit that I provided to you was really talking about the first quarter and everything that we have on our plate. I'm going to summarize this for you. It's late. The police department and finance and administration, it seems manageable. It's a lot, but it's manageable. We have some pressure points, though, with two other departments, community development and public works. Let's talk about community development for just a moment. As I mentioned, the number of projects they have on their strategic plan for the first quarter is not very much. However, as we've been discussing, building permits, the fourth quarter building permit levels was an all-time high. Those permits are still going through the process. That's just where permits submitted. So we also have 6 active site plans. Is that correct? Yep, 6 active site plans all at once. I think I mentioned in December, or maybe it was even at the last council meeting, while we have an outside consultant for engineering and building permits for the building codes, our internal staff is not really structured to handle this level of work. With that said, we don't have a choice. We have a level of service that we've made a commitment to. So we are already underway. I'm not looking for council direction on this. We are reaching out to, there's a bunch of firms that specialize in helping do, especially building permit review, but also land use case review as well. And that's especially helpful for community development or any group that works on primarily permits, because those, especially in the real estate market, go up and down. And if you hire for Christmas, right, then when it's not Christmas, your parking lots are empty, and then we have nothing for those people to do. So we are going to reach out to some firms and get somebody on board really quickly. They should be able to help us in relatively short order.
And
So-
you mean a contractor.
For sure, yeah.
Yes, you didn't say that, so I.
Sorry. Some ones you may have heard of are like Safe Built. That's the one we used back in the day.
There's Safe Built, there's Atkins.
Atkins is
There's a
another
couple
one, yes.
other out there, but those are the two big ones.
Yeah. I think Safe Built has probably worked for 3/4 of the metro area jurisdictions. So that leaves us with Public Works. So if you can go to the next slide. So here are the first quarter projects. This is a lot. I'm just going to shorten the conversation again and tell you that the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are all underway. There's really nothing we can do to stop those in motion, right? We're not going to put the pause on the cell service follow-up conversation. That's not realistic. Highline Canal stormwater criteria, that schedule is not being devised by us. That is being devised by an outside group, or groups as the case may be. The traffic study, that's actually, we're super close to getting that on the street. So that makes no sense. And besides, we need to get the numbers for the traffic counts now before school is out for the year. We need normals. So we have to keep that on track. You see where I'm going with this, right? So really, if we boil all this whole giant production down to really what we're talking about, we're really talking about the last 4 lines. Now, within that, there is some nuance. I guess what I'm really asking council is, there's a couple of these that it would be good to hear your input on priority level. Because if we could move these back, it may really help with the short term. I'm going to let Jay or Emily talk about the pair of the first 2, which is the Eastside Farmhouse and the parking lot. Just a brief description about where we're at and what the timing is for those is all we need to do. So for example, with the farmhouse, our partner, the Land Preserve, is really hoping that we can start that sooner rather than later. So that they, for their events, they have bathrooms, et cetera.
Same with the parking.
Yeah, and the parking helps their events, but also, the earlier we did that, there might be some benefits by getting some plantings in a planting season. There's ways to do that in the fall too, but it's probably better to do it now. So that's basically it. The Quincy Farm annual plan, we usually start that here in the first quarter. In an effort, the last time we did it, we started in the first quarter to meet it with the mid-year presentation to you all. Maybe we could start that a month or 2 later, something like that. That might be an option. The e-bikes, that's a PTRC conversation that we as staff obviously have to provide support for, mainly Emily. It's a project that PTRC really initiated, and a previous iteration of PTRC initiated with a desire to reevaluate our e-bike codes and policies, ostensibly, and hopefully I'm not speaking too far into the future, ostensibly to make those more lax or to allow more e-bike usage. Okay, I didn't say too much. All right. So,
just a comment there. So I've heard that State Representative Kyle Larson is introducing a bill statewide about e-bikes and classifications and so on. So it may make sense to see what's happening at the Capitol in that regard.
As it relates to their usage everywhere, or this would be specifically on trails?
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
Because, currently we don't allow them on trails at all, even though people do use them, they're not allowed on trails. And there was an extensive discussion. I think you were on PTRC at the time and I was on council. And the decision was considered and the decision was made to leave them as illegal. And from what I understand, that was years ago and lots of things have changed and there's now an idea to revisit it. I guess my first thought on that is PTRC is a recommending body to council. If anyone has very strong feelings one way or another, for example, if the council felt pretty strongly that we didn't want to make a change, then we could free up somebody's time by saying, thank you for bringing that up, but we're not really interested in recommendations on that at this time. But you'd have to have pretty solid, because you don't know what they're going to say yet. I mean, they could have a compelling argument, so I don't want to, I don't want to preempt anything.
Mayor, I hear you, but I guess we're looking at it this sort of that way, akin to when they bring their master plans to you to review, and you have the opportunity at the time to shoot them down for whatever reason you so choose. I would think staff capacity is certainly, even if it's not a permanent, even if you just gave direction to maybe postpone for a short time, that might also be helpful, just as a thought. So those are the four that we would love for any council input that you might have.
Counselor Fisher, I
Well,
see you reaching.
just one other comment on that. We may be able to use the expertise of some neighboring communities, because my understanding is just about everybody is looking at this. I mean, Greenwood Village is talking about it, Centennial's talking about it, and they don't want them on their trails. Sorry. No, go ahead.
A lot of other jurisdictions are having discussions about e-motos and e-dirt bikes, which are not what we're talking about at the PTRC level, just to be clear. So PTRC's discussion is, certainly we're talking about those devices in the context of defining what we're regulating, but PTRC, when they made their work plan, was only considering and is still only considering e-bikes.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think that's a mistake. Because I think the people who are complaining are mostly complaining about the dirt bikes, but, and
Sorry, when we're talking about changing regulation to allow something, they're only talking about e-bikes.
Okay.
It's not that they're not
Okay, that makes
discussing
sense.
those other devices and problems with them and issues with
Yeah.
enforcement and all that good stuff. But there's no, just to make it clear for anyone listening too, there is no consideration of allowing
Okay.
e-dirt bikes, e-motos, anything that high-powered on our trails.
Okay, and I am not sure how our neighboring jurisdictions are splitting those, I'm not, or whether they are.
I
So
suspect.
just a
Yeah.
2-second explanation, most other jurisdictions allow class 1 and class 2 e-bikes on most of their trails as sort of a blanket summary. So we're the only jurisdiction that does not allow e-bikes on the High Line.
And that's what I was going to say, was that I suspect the reason they're talking about it is because their ordinances, et cetera, are probably worded to allow. And now this class has arisen that they don't want to allow, and so they're going to have to make a change in order to restrict certain types, because what they probably have right now probably allows it all. That would be my guess. But
Mayor, if I could.
Yeah.
To the extent that you're looking at these last four items, if the two Quincy Farm are not irretrievably linked, that you can't phase, I mean, to me, the second one about the grass parking area is less important than the reconstruction of the farmhouse. And I personally think that we have been able to work pretty well with parking for functions that go on there right now. And if that needs to lag, I would prioritize that less than the first. And that secondly, with respect to e-bikes, I know it has now been a few years, but to those who were not around at that part, we had over 250 public comments that were made, and it was either 75 or 80% in opposition to e-bikes at that time. And my comment would be is, I don't know if the composition of the village has changed in the last, I don't know, number of years to the point that that number would be radically different. I mean, if it was 5149 or something closer, but it was a landslide that we were told not to change to allow e-bikes on trails. So, I don't know if the adequate amount of time has passed to merit a relook, but I would also say that that is a lower priority to me.
One of the questions I was going to ask, and I'm kind of in the same view, which is the parking to me is less important than the farmhouse, but I was going to ask to the land preserve, which one is more important to them? And I don't want to hear there are multiple number one priorities, which a boss one time said, and you can tell Linda that I don't believe in that. Which one is more important to them?
Well, and I would assume that we're not, I think of the Quincy Farm priorities here, the annual plan has to be a priority. And I know the visioning is already in progress, which I greatly appreciate. But
But I was talking about the two. The annual plan has to be done. That ain't coming off.
I mean, like, it just has to kind of be there. And so I don't even know how much more capacity, even with those that are already in progress, plus the annual plan, I'm not sure, that we have the capacity to do any of these other ones in that time frame. And I don't know whether, we were presented a budget that had some pretty large, a balanced budget, by the way, that had some pretty large numbers in it that we all questioned and asked to be reduced. And I think as a result, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Newman, but as a result, I don't even think our current budget expects to expend as much as our projected revenue. So I think we've budgeted a surplus. For my own sake, because we've been making such great headway on Quincy Farm, and I would really hate to see that stall, I would be open to considering extra resources there, if that's even really possible. I don't know that, the mythical man month of just adding another person, it's not like we could just pluck somebody off the street and say, here's Quincy Farm, go do it, but.
And maybe that's a longer term solution. It's certainly not going to help us with our first quarter dilemma that we have right now.
And I think it's a little harder because we could find somebody for construction oversight, but we need somebody that's sitting with the architect, such as Emily and myself, to talk about Quincy Farm while we're just finishing the design for those things. So, I mean, the construction oversight is a whole different thing, but I think it's just tough to take somebody off the street and say,
plug them in there.
Here's our vision.
Be an owner's rep or something.
Is there somebody on the land preserve, though, that would have the time and the skill set to do that?
Not for our budgets,
No.
not to manage our money, no.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm with Rob. I'd push the grass parking area off, okay? Because the point is when I looked at that, I thought, we haven't really approved that anyway. That's number one. Number two is that I view that as tied more closely to the vision, what comes out of that, than actually the East Side Farmhouse. And I think the East Side Farmhouse, if the land, I don't know, I haven't talked to them, and Emily, I invite you to say, but I know that that's really, really important to them in terms of, and I agree with you, Mayor, we don't want to stop and curtail project. That's why that farmhouse construction is important, because the barn's been completed, we've already seen what it is. You can only imagine what happens now when that farmhouse jumps up. That's where I'd come from at the end of the day. If you're looking for something to say, what's the priority? I mean, I'd put the farmhouse higher up than I would the parking.
Let me ask a question about because you just said that doesn't help us in first quarter. Given that we haven't even seen the feasibility study, and it's now the end of January, what's the reality that any construction will be done at all in the first quarter?
Feasibility study for which one?
Feasibility study.
For the farmhouse, we took down the budget for that construction project.
That
We
feasibility study
haven't
was from
said-
last year.
But the council has not said, we're putting bathrooms here, we're doing that. We haven't approved any of that stuff, have we? The East Side Farmhouse.
The budget approved the reduced amount.
Yes.
Yes,
But not, we don't know what that covers.
because we haven't got the bids back. But
don't.
that's
Right, so
part that we
that's
need
my
help
point.
with.
The construction, we're not going to be building anything in first quarter because we
Well,
haven't
no,
even
we
seen
would,
anything.
we would be going through the architectural design.
Yeah.
To show you where the bathrooms would be and what, we need a new roof, here's what the plan looks like, and here's the cost.
That's the heavy lift.
Okay.
That we could theoretically push off if we didn't think that was a priority. It's the same with the parking, for that matter. We probably won't get to the construction of the parking either, but it's the design, it's working with the
So I
designers,
guess
it's the
I
reviews.
didn't understand that. I thought we would see the feasibility study that says, here's how feasible it is to use this building for these purposes. Here's there's asbestos, there's this, there's, and then we would say, yes, we want to renovate the house and put in bathrooms, or no, we just want to attach a lean-to to it and put bathrooms in there,
I
or.
think that whole process got short-sighted when the numbers came out and council pretty much said, we're not spending that type of money. So then we came back and said, okay, here's, what, as partners with the land preserve, we think are important, the bathrooms, the new roof, and here's the number.
Okay.
And so that we will still bring a finalized feasibility study, but I think that discussion kind of pointed staff to say,
Hold
that's
on.
right.
Hold on, Emily's like,
I would use the word design. We'll bring back more of a
whatever.
final design. The feasibility study we already did, right, at the higher number.
Can I interject? Thank you.
Thank you.
The feasibility study is done. So we have 3 options in the feasibility study. 2 were the options that we sort of back of the envelope had presented to council, where the numbers came in over $1 million. So we started to claw back at that point and worked with the land preserve to create an option 3 that was much more limited, just added bathrooms, that type of thing. So the feasibility study is done. We have all that information. We're now at the point of design, which we will bring to council when we actually have the layout, what the cost estimates are, where the bathrooms are actually going, ingress, egress, all that good stuff. So we do have the feasibility study results. Happy to share those around, but those I think aren't quite what we're looking for right now. What we're going to be presenting with costs is the actual architectural design.
Okay. So now that was my misunderstanding because I hadn't seen the feasibility study, I was assuming it was not completed. And so that was like, well, you got to finish that. And then there's, and so now I understand that has been completed and you are moving to the design phase. And that's the part that you're talking about.
Do you have a recommendation of what you all would like to see? That I think that may be more helpful for us than us kind of trying to guess.
I would tell you, based on just what you've been talking about, pushing the parking back and we'll call it tabling the e-bikes would be a tremendous help. That I'm not suggesting that those go away forever or anything, but just to unclog this bottleneck that we're in, it might help with workloads. So that would be a big help.
And let me ask one more question. How long is it going to take to do the annual plan? Is that it's a 3-month project, and do we need to start it in January? Well, no, we could start it in July, or is...
We normally, I think the step we would start is in first quarter would be in March. Is that correct?
Yeah, we would typically start it in March, lay out projects with the land preserve, and start getting cost estimates. That's really one of the biggest issues. To be able to present it to council in the summer, which is something that council has requested in past years to pull it away from the start of the budgeting process so you all have a better idea, and then we can approve the plan, and then not have it be in flux while the budget is as well.
So you could, typically you'd start it in March, you said, but if we push it back a month or so, we'd still probably have it in time for budget consider. I mean, I was the one who asked for that, so I'm willing to give you some leeway on that.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, so what did you say there? I mean, because I agree with you at the end of the day.
Started a month later.
Started a month later, but not pushing the end date past wherever it would be, which seems to me that compresses it. I think it is important. I thought your suggestion was a good one, and I know I was pushed for that. That's got to be fleshed out as we go through then the overall city budget period, and so it's got to be tied in with that.
Yeah, but currently, I agree with you, except for the one part that you said it doesn't push the end date out. I thought I heard that it would push the end date out, because otherwise we're not really taking anything off of anybody's plate. We're saying do the same amount of work in much less time. It would push the deliverable back a month, but that would still be in time for the overall budget.
So what are you saying then?
Because we had kind of asked for it to be more in the summer. And the budget doesn't start till October.
Right, now I understand.
So,
September.
September is when the draft.
well, yeah.
But we could have put it in the first reading.
If council's okay with the fact that it might be maybe the same meeting as the budget going on the studies, on the dais, thank you.
Right, so that you'd be able to talk about it in the first reading, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also,
Study session.
the other thing with that particular, the annual plan this time, is that if you think about it, the Quincy Farm visioning for the west side very well may inform the annual plan
And it will.
Yeah.
overall. So there might be some other benefits towards it being a little later than normal.
I think that's all right. I think.
So there's 3, right? Just to make sure.
Yeah.
I think that will help. If we need to come back to council with more input, either with schedules or resources, we certainly will. But this is a great start.
Okay.
And again, this combined with the consultant that Paul is going to be getting on board. This is not a normal circumstance, but it's certainly something that we need to do to be able to keep up with the expectations and level of service that we're committed to. Right.
And I'm happy to call the PTRC chair and just say, we really appreciate all that you're doing, but I'm going to ask that you hold off for a little bit because we need our resources elsewhere at the moment. Okay.
That's the only report I had, Director Workman.
Is that it, really?
That's it? I do have a couple of things. You may or may not be aware that House Bill 26-1001 has been introduced. That is what's being referred to as the home bill, which would allow for construction of up to 3-story apartments on school district, school property, transit district property, and housing authority property. We were just informed today that that's scheduled for hearing on February 3rd at 1:30. If you want more details, let me know. I can get that for you. CML is offering to kind of organize whoever wishes to testify, including elected officials, and just for the benefit of the group. One of the members, that's going to be heard in the House Local Government Committee, and one of the members of that committee is a resident of Cherry Hills Village. So for what that's worth.
It's our representative. who,
Yes.
Yes, unfortunately, I think we know won't be swayed by that.
So if you're interested in testifying, you certainly don't have to coordinate through me, but I can connect you with CML. If you're interested, let me know and we can have that conversation.
And I would say we need to coordinate with each other because early on, years ago, a lot of us showed up and it's a little overwhelming, particularly given the nature of our community to have all of us there. And so I think, probably no more than 2 is a good number.
And having a different message, related,
Yes.
but a different message.
Ask you a
And-
question. But there's housing on Kent's campus, right?
Correct.
Is it multifamily housing over there?
There's I think it's a 6-plex for teachers or
Right.
their staff.
Right. What does that fall under on our zoning?
What is the property zoned? Property is zoned R1.
But through the previous expanded use permit,
Correct,
it was allowed.
correct. It's
Say that
it's-
again? I'm not
So the
sure.
site plan amendment, site plans used to be called expanded use permits. And so they went through a hearing process with the city council at the time. They put that on their site plan, their expanded use permit plan, and it was approved.
And it's been in existence
So
for
we do have multifamily housing
decades.
in the city.
Yes, if we ever want to testify, I guess we should say.
No, I just didn't, we
But it's
just
not-
had talked about that the other day.
We don't have
and I wasn't
multifamily
sure.
zoning,
Correct.
Right. No, I know.
but we do
And
have
yet-
housing,
and
yes,
yet.
exactly.
Okay.
Correct.
But it was, so that's a kind of use that would be permitted without approval under this new legislation?
Correct, up to 3 stories with, as I understand the bill now, with an undetermined density, up to 3 stories, the local jurisdiction would have to allow.
All right, I'm just curious.
Are they defining educational institutions to include private schools?
I don't know the answer to
I
that.
believe the answer is yes, because that they're specifically looking at universities and,
Correct.
so yes, I think it includes even private schools. Not just state, DUs, private, we have private universities here.
Correct.
So it's very similar to the YIGB bill last year?
Almost identically without the
churches.
church
Okay, it's
component.
not churches, it's schools.
And it's not limited to, last year was churches and public school land. This year removes churches but adds in all schools.
All school, district, public or private property. Last update I have is this morning we received a proposal for the Nexus study from Tischler Weiss. Manager Black and I have a meeting later this week to go through the details on that and give that a scrub in order to take our next steps with that. So stay tuned.
Thank you. Director Goldie.
No comment. I mean, no report. Counselor McGuire got me all off here.
Chief.
Not much of a report, but really just a thank you to City Council. I'm certain that you saw the end of year report published by the police department. Second year in a row, double-digit decreases in all of our crime categories, and it's not wasted on me how delicate those statistics are. And there's a lot that factors into that. Certainly good police work and having a vigilant community, but also the work that this council and the preceding council has done to prioritize public safety in this community is to not be overshadowed. The personnel, equipment, technology, those things certainly added to our efficiency in keeping crime low in Cherry Hills Village. So we're really proud of the end of year numbers. Again, 2 years in a row is something to be proud of citywide. But also, I reported to you last year, we started gathering clearance rates. Clearance, just for the edification of council, clearance means that the case has been solved in some way. It's different than a closure, which means generally we didn't have a suspect, we couldn't make an arrest, the case is just out there closed until something else develops. Clearances mean that an arrest has been made and the case has been solved, for lack of a better word. In 2024, our clearance rate was, and really the first year that clearance rates have ever been reported by Cherry Hills Village Police, clearance rates were 13%. The national average is 15.9 or 16%. The benchmark that we are hoping to achieve, as it's similar to a unicorn, we've heard of it, we've just never seen one, is 23%. Our 2024 numbers are likely going to meet or exceed the 23%. That's that's almost twice as much clearances, twice as much crime being solved in the community as compared to the previous year. And that does not happen without council support and prioritizing public safety. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Question, what is the electronic ticketing contract? What is that for?
Yeah, so we've had electronic issuance of citations. It was a company that we use called Brazos. It didn't quite meet our needs in terms of functionality. Any customization to the product was really challenging, months if not years to make changes. It didn't directly interface with our finance system. So we went to market to see if there was a better product out there, and we landed on a different solution. That does directly interface with courts. It does directly interface with Cassell, our finance module, to process court fees and fines and those things, and tremendously much more user favored by our officers. It allows the tickets to be done right on their laptops in their cars as opposed to this little handheld device. It's a much more efficient system, and we are almost to fruition with that product. I'm guessing in the next 30 days we'll be live with that.
And I did see some coverage of the arrest that was made in the person who was vandalizing trash cans along the Highline Canal. I'm not sure what the news outlets received. The coverage didn't, what's the right word? Didn't seem to convey the seriousness of the dangerousness of the crime. I don't know if that was intentional to not, stress people out, but
it's a great observation. And the manager and I spoke about that today. The reality is the whodunit is much more attractive in the media market than the solve. We updated our release to add the charges. That release was sent to all the news outlets that covered the initial story. Some, I think most maybe, covered that an arrest had been made and did not go any further because I think it's just not as interesting. Today we received a notice, a directive from the 18th Judicial District to seal all records related to that case. So I won't be able to speak on it anymore, but I think council certainly picked up on the significance of the arrest and the significance of the products being developed by the person charged with those crimes. When your federal partners who investigate this as part of their normal duties say this was a big deal, that really has significance to us and the efficiency in which that arrest was made. So the people of Cherry Hills Village should feel good about the conclusion of those cases. It was a dangerous situation, which I think has been quelled. And justice is sought in that particular case. So,
thank you. Director Newman.
No report.
City Clerk. Manager Black.
Thank you for the discussion. I appreciate knowing that our priorities are going to be in sync going forward for this quarter. And very importantly, the unicorn that the Art Commission had at Winter Celebration for kids to paint is now on display in the City Hall lobby. So folks can check that out if they would like to.
City Attorney.
Well, you've had a lot of words from me lately, but I've got nothing to say tonight.
Yeah, I guess I would just say that the chief talks about a unicorn number that he's trying to achieve, and Emily's out here providing a real unicorn in the lobby. So she sees your unicorn and raises you a real one.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. All right. I assume that passes unanimously at 9:22 p.m. All right. Thank you all.